Welcome. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMALOTN. Joined as always by my guy, soon to be father, Cody Saftik. We are here propping you up for UFC Vegas 61, headlined by a women's strawweight fight between Mackenzie Dern. She's going to be trying to give Yan Xiaonan a baby by taking her to the mat and submitting her. And then on the other hand, with Yan Xiaonan, obviously a vicious, ferocious striker looking to knock out Mackenzie Dern. So a fun striker versus grappler matchup that we have in the main event. But first and foremost, got to ask how my guy Cody is doing. Cody, you're getting down to the last couple days of crossing that line. How are you feeling? What's the feeling like in the Saftik household? Let us into your life a little
bit. Bro, I've been good. It's just like, man, I'm starting to get anxious. Imagine if it was like, yo, it's Christmas is on the 25th. And then on the 25th, it was like, maybe it's going to be the 26th, and the 27th, and the 28th. Now you're into the new year. So yeah, like, I just think the more I'm sitting around, the more I'm starting to like hit me where like, man, life's never going to be the same again. But at the same time, what can I do to preoccupy my time? Talk some fights. And this is I wouldn't say loaded, but 13 fight card in total. So you can pick and choose the spots that you do like. There's also a Bellator on Saturday as well. So like, baby, just come on the Friday, right? Come on. Have the baby on the Friday, maybe catch some fights on the Saturday, but we'll see. We'll see how it happens. I'll take it as long as it's a healthy baby. I'm not complaining. But
we
in
know
terms of this card, I'm pumped up. And Mackenzie Dern, I know a lot of our fans would like to have a baby with her. And maybe she can pull out a submission and cash some tickets for us as well.
Exactly. I know the degen that you are. You'll probably have that mobile app Fight Pass loaded up while your wife's giving birth in the other room. Just like, Latifi, please knock out Alexia Oleynik, like something like that.
So actually, when my brother was born, right, my dad, he raises horses, right? So he brings my mom to the hospital, and he's just like, okay, and they're sitting there, and then he's just like, calf, fuck, I got one in the third at Mohawk, like I gotta go drive one. Like, I really like this horse. He's like, you think you might have the baby in like the next hour? And she's like, I don't know, Mike. Like, she's freaking out. He's like, I don't know, right? So anyways, has the kid, and then he just jets, goes to the races, and he wins.
Hey,
so like his whole thing was
cause.
Yeah, and they always kind of laugh about the story, like, oh, dad couldn't wait to get out of there, had to go drive this horse. And his buddy, he's still buddies with the guys that train the horse. And that guy's like, yeah, I remember you came down and you drove that horse. Like, there's a big story between them. So, your career, your passion, the things you're into, like, that always comes first. Baby, yes, that's your number one priority. But you do it because you love it, right? And in this case, it's the same thing, right? I'm very fortunate that I can say I make my living talking fights, matchmaking fights, basically just doing stuff that's fight related. Don't got to work a regular job, and as such, yeah, some moments you're gonna miss because you're married to the game, so to speak. So, anyways, there's more things a guy could be doing with his time. I'm pumped that I get to talk about fights.
Exactly. Next time we talk to you, you're probably going to be in that stage of fatherhood. So very interested to talk to you and speak to you in regards to that and see, if that flick, if there was a switch that flicked on or off after that moment happened, because a lot of people like to talk about that as well once they have their first child. So we'll be cheering for Mrs. Saftik, and I hope everything goes well over the next coming weeks. But we got some fights to talk about, Cody. But before we do get into that, as you guys saw at the top of the show, I put a little clip up of the All-Stars app that they are very heavily trying to push nowadays. And it is a phenomenal app. They sent me the link the other day, and I was able to customize it the way that I want. You can get odds from all your different spots. You get great news, great tail of the tape graphics and all that. So make sure you guys check out the All-Star app. It is completely free, so you don't have to worry about paying a dime or anything like that. Link is in the description below. Give it a click, and trust me, it will be your new hub for MMA news or anything MMA related. The All-Star will have you covered, so make sure you guys go check that thing out. All right, let's not waste any time because we can get right into the breakdowns now, Cody. First fight of the night. We got a blistering bantamweight bout ahead of us between Randy Costa and Guido Canetti. Minus 285 on the Randy Costa side, plus 240 on the Guido Canetti side. This fight, violence, right? Like, what else can you really say about these two guys? Randy Costa, we know the deal with him. The guy can kill you in the first round and look like a champion doing so, or he falls off a cliff after that 4 or 5 minute mark. His opponents are able to take over, and all three of his losses coming in the second round just gives you an idea of what kind of fighter you're expecting. One of the best fighters in round one, but after that, the guy's ready to just turn over and give it up. And that's what Tony Kelly was able to do. That's what Brandon Davis was able to do. And even Adrian Yanez, even though Adrian Yanez was getting touched up for a solid four minutes, like Randy Costa looked like a huge favorite early in that fight against Yanez, but we knew that he was eventually going to hit that wall if he couldn't get Yanez out of there. And that's what happened. That is exactly what can happen here as well. Costa, I completely understand why he's minus 285, but I can never back somebody at that type of chalk with having that much of cardio issues or having that much confidence issues, especially when fights go a little bit deeper. I think he is fast enough. I think he is diverse enough. I think his striking is way too dynamic for Guido Canetti. And I think it's mainly going to be the speed that's the difference maker here nice and early. And I think that we'll see Costa land that knockout. But I do have to just quickly just throw out there, I like those big props, Cody. I'm not saying I'm betting it, but for anybody that is interested in it at all, Canetti to win in round two is anywhere from plus 1,100 to plus 1,300, especially considering that's the only way Costa has really been losing is in round two. But then on the flip side, the bet that I probably like the most is Costa to win in round one at minus 110, or even the under 1.5, which is taking a heavy amount of action. I got in at minus 160, I believe it was a couple days ago. Now it's all the way up around minus 175, minus 200 at certain spots. I'm expecting violence, and I'm expecting it to happen early as well. I'm going to say Costa round one, but the under 1.5 is probably the safest way to go in this matchup. What about yourself, Cody? How are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, pretty much all the numbers on this fight's beaten to death. Like, if you like Randy Costa, well, he's a minus 310, so you can't really bet that. So it's like, okay, well, I like Randy Costa by knockout, minus 160. Really not that great of a price tag on a knockout prop. Okay, well, I like Randy Costa in round one. It's even money. So it's like,
Yeah.
none of the, well, I like the under 2.5 and the fight doesn't go the distance. Like, no, are you kidding me? Even like you said, the under 1.5, and I'm still seeing it at minus 165, but all the same, that's an under 1.5. So people just expect so much violence out of this fight that, yeah, logic dictates that's probably what's going to happen. But one thing key to note with Randy Costa is that all of his fights, the Brandon Davis fight, as you mentioned, both of his wins against Journey Newson and Boston Solomon, we get a quick hop on them, and the Adrian Yanez fight is that he's a front runner. And then in the Tony Kelly fight, he didn't attempt to do that at all. He tried to fight conservative. That was actually his undoing. Was he decided to try to take the first round off and kind of like conserve his energy, and Tony Kelly just put a beating on him and then, broke him in the second round. So I don't really know. I don't know what his approach is here. If he goes out there and just goes guns a-blazing against Guido Canetti, again, that's the kind of fight that Guido's going to want. But I do think the younger, more agile guy in Randy Costa eventually does clip him and get the knockout. But I have to wonder, like, again, in his 2 wins, he's coming forward. In his 2 losses, he's coming forward until he starts tiring. And then Brendan Davis is one of these tough, rugged type fighters. He doesn't win a whole lot, but he is tough and rugged, right? Yeah. Adrian Yanez's case, he's top-notch talent, but he's able to put the pressure on him. And I almost got a bad gut feeling that Guido Canetti could do that. But yeah, at his age, the fact that he's got 1 win in the last, number of years, that win against Chris Moutinho, you can make all types of excuses like, Moutinho, come on, man, he's damaged goods, and all you got to do is he's so hittable, all you got to do is really sit down on your shot. Guido can do that. Randy Costa is young. He's learning. He's improving. He kind of has to learn on the job because he had no experience before coming to the UFC. You got his record up real quick. Like, look at his wins before signing a UFC contract.
Yeah, he's just starting these dudes.
Guys. Yeah. Fought 4 guys. 0-1, 0-0, 0-4, and a dude that was like 4-8 or
5-9.
5-9, right. And then he signed into the UFC. Like, what? So to me, yes, he is going to get better. His cardio will get a little bit better. He'll learn how to settle his nerves because he didn't have a long amateur career. He fought twice, I think, and 4 times as a pro. Like, Randy will get there, but the numbers on this fight do not look good. So gun to my head, I got to make a selection. I would go with the Randy Costa by knockout minus 160. If you're a value boy, Paul mentioned that actually on the show yesterday himself. He was like, I like that Guido Canetti round 2 at plus 1,100, plus 1,200, because Guido can bang, right? Guido's cardio is not good, but in the same breath, Randy's is not good. Maybe it gets greasy. Maybe it gets greasy and he breaks him down the same way. So interesting. I would say it's all interesting.
Yeah, shout out to our guy, Jan H. Hajed here saying, I'm watching the show in the toilets at my night shift. Sneaky from Belgium. Shout out to Belgium. Cool. Having eyes on us. Truly appreciate everyone from around the world tuning in and showing you guys some support. We'll quickly take this question here from Jared Curry in regards to that fight. Is there any worry of Costa overcorrecting his death gassing similar to Kosi versus Jaws? Now, that fight was from the last event where Kosi did absolutely nothing. It seemed like his only goal in that fight was to make it to the judges' scorecards, and that ultimately ended up costing him on the scorecards as well because he just didn't do anything. Just briefly, your thoughts in regards to that? Do you think Costa might overreact to his gassing issues and just be a little bit too conservative, and we just get a low-paced kickboxing fight until the 15-minute mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon to see that. You even saw the great Francis Ngannou after his first banger with Stipe do nothing in the Derek Lewis fight because it is at the back of your mind where you don't want to gas. In my estimation, though, he did that in his last fight. If you watch that fight with Tony Kelly, he does not fight the way he normally does. Instead, he's trying to set up his shots and take his time, and Kelly just gets the jump on him and really hurts him, breaks him down. Now you can say, well, why is he so tired if he hasn't thrown as much as he normally? It's the damage, right? Tony Kelly's making him work. So in this spot, I think he's going to try to find that happy median. His coaches would say, listen, your wins come when you're ultra aggressive and you do this. Hell, you were doing excellent against Adrian Yanez, a world-class guy. Let's just settle you down, cause you to be explosive in spurts. And of course, it's just nerves, right? I mean, for a guy that's got not a whole lot of experience and all of a sudden you're fighting top-level guys. And dude, there was a lot of pressure on him in that Adrian Yanez fight because he's going out there and he's representing peanut butter cups, man. And if you lose to the fucking Dr. Pepper guy, like, come on, man. Really?
I was Team Dr. Pepper that night, Cody.
I love peanut butter.
All because I can't have peanuts. I'm allergic to peanuts, so I can't.
Are you allergic to peanuts? Dude,
I've
hung out with you in person many of times. I didn't know that. I may have had peanuts on my hand. I love peanuts.
And I may have walked away because the smell was probably too overwhelming.
Really? Jeez, I didn't know that, dude. The more you know. Yeah. Isn't like a lot of Indian cuisine like with peanuts? Like
so recently they started putting like almonds and stuff in butter chicken for some goddamn reason. So I'll have to like whenever I have butter chicken, I'll have to ask the chef and be like, hey, you guys put anything in this? Because I can't have it. But like that's the only dish really. It's our sweets. Our sweets usually have like pistachios and almonds and all this other shit on it. So I'm not really a fan of Indian sweets to begin with. So
right. Well, what can you do, man? I mean,
there you go. Either way, hopefully Randy Costa can go out there and get Canetti out of there quickly because I do have a good chunk of change on that under 1.5, and I'm hoping that Guido Canetti is going to force that fight out of him as well. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. Great one that we got between it's actually a catchweight fight at 140 pounds between the Lithuanian Ronda Rousey, Yulia Stoliarenko, 9 of her 10 wins coming via armbar. It's only fitting that we give her that nickname at this point in time, as she's going up against UFC debutante and Stockton's own Chelsea Chandler. In terms of odds, we got minus 115 on the Stoliarenko side and minus 105 on Chelsea Chandler. Now, the first time I came across Chelsea Chandler was when I was tape studying her second last opponent, Olivia Parker, who had faced Kat Zingano in Bellator. And I'm like, this girl just got knocked out by this 3-1 chick or 2-1 chick. Of course, Kat Zingano is going to go out there and starch this chick as well. So I deemed it Chelsea Chandler. I'm like, hey, do you think that Kat Zingano can also finish Olivia Parker? She goes, of course. And that's the only message I ever received from her. And I made a good chunk of change fading Olivia Parker by taking the under 2.5 in that Kat Zingano fight. She has some decent power. Her striking is coming along. It's still a little ways behind. It seems like the majority of her success comes from her being the stronger between her and her opponent. Like she actually just cage clinches her opponents, and she seemed to learn that lesson after the first fight she had where she ended up losing. She lost her pro debut, but she came back into her next couple fights and just realized that if I just control these chicks, that should be more than enough for me to go out there and win these fights. And that's what she was able to do. The Courtney King fight, a little bit closer than it should have been, which was her last fight, but she still picks up the win as a big favorite there. But here against Stoliarenko, she's going to be going up against a chick who's going to be moving forward the entire time, offensive-minded pretty much every single moment. She doesn't really have much technique with her striking. It's all based on toughness and grit. She knows she's going to get hit, but she always moves forward and puts it on her opponents. That Alexis Davis fight, right? Alexis Davis was a big favorite in that fight, and I know a lot of people, including myself, that were sweating that ticket way more than we should have. Luckily, Alexis pulled it off. But that's just how Stoliarenko fights. She makes up for her lack of technique in the striking realm with her aggressiveness. But once she gets the fight to the ground, or even if she ends up on her back, you see her throwing up a lot of submissions. She's very active. She loves that armbar. Like I said at the top of the breakdown, 9 of her 10 wins coming via armbar. The only other win on her record was a 5-round decision in probably one of the bloodiest women's fights I've ever seen when she went up against Lisa Versosa. she is a savage of a woman, but she's just never going to be able to crack that like top 15, top 10 ranking because her entire MMA game is just not up to snuff with the rest of that division. Here, I think she's lucky in the fact that she's fighting Chelsea Chandler when she's a little bit too green. Like, I think that Chandler still needs some refining. I think she still needs some work. I think she'll only be able to get so far by using her strength advantage in most fights. I think we'll see Yulia try to use that strength against her and try to, switch that momentum with her judo throws or something, try to get her to the ground, try to get her jiu-jitsu going, and try to rough her up. This is the first legit fight, in my opinion, that Chelsea Chandler is going to be in, and I don't think she's going to be ready for it. I don't have the balls to bet Yulia Stoliarenko here, but she is going to be my prediction, and I am considering a small stab on her submission prop of plus 300. She is always live for a submission, considering how aggressive she is in getting those. So I'm going to go Stoliarenko by sub. What do you think? Am I not giving Chandler her flowers yet, or does she seem raw to you as well?
No, I agree, man. I mean, one thing with Julia Stoliarenko is that it really wasn't all that long ago people were calling her Stolia Stinko, right? Because she's just no good. You've seen her on The Ultimate Fighter. You've seen her on Invicta. You see her working her way up. She's just very sloppy, very, very rugged, but the technique's not quite there. But I've been very impressed with her as of late. Keep in mind that this is someone that has the judo. She has that armbar. She has that, maybe she was considered a one-trick pony, but she's also someone that's got Burmese bare-knuckle boxing experience under her belt, competed in Lethway over in Myanmar. It was like a savage sport. You mentioned her last performance in Invicta before signing back to the UFC, and it's like a savage 5-round performance, right? There are these little moments. Now you watch her fight with Yannis Kunike, awful, and Julia Avila, awful. And that's the reason why guys like us absolutely loaded up on Alexis Davis. And I remember going on record multiple places and being like, listen, all she's got is the armbar, and there is no chance she's catching Alexis Davis in an armbar from guard, right? It's not happening. Alexis Davis is high-level BJJ black belt for women's MMA, right? Not getting submitted, especially while she's on top. It's not happening. And, dude, she was ass in on half a dozen armbars. Some tight ones, some very good ones. In the second round, when Alexis Davis opted not to take her to the ground, it was 5 minutes of striking in that second round. Stoliarenko outstruck her, right? That's all good stuff. 29 years old, heading in the right direction. The win over Jessie Just Rose Clark is just gratification of just like, okay, I'm putting in the work. I'm making improvements. And, of course, what does she get it with? That one move, the armbar. So when you consider this fight with Chelsea, she's facing an opponent that's making her UFC debut, right? There is no crowd in attendance. There's no media members in attendance. It's like a super private fight card with Mark Zuckerberg in attendance. How do you make your debut and like fight to the best of your abilities? There's going to be some type of shell shock. Whereas like Julia, yeah, there's a language barrier. She don't know what the fuck is going on. She's just here to dance, right? And you had better be ready to do the salsa, because she likes to fight, right? And I think this is a spot where she can slowly break her down and just catch her with that armbar, right? So as far as the submission prop, you're right. I'm seeing 275 to plus 300, and I think that if you want to just, YOLO, little shot, little value play, Stoliarenko by submission, very, very chancy. However, Julia by first round submission is plus 600, and like she mostly submits them in the first round, right? When she does get the armbar, she either gets it and snaps the arm, or you tap, or that's it, right? Because in the Davis fight, the first initial armbar attempts were very tight. The longer the fight went, not so much, right? So maybe if you want to get a little greedy with it, you could chase the plus 600. If not, just take up the straight up submission at plus 275, plus 300 range. If not, even just take that slight, I guess it's an even money play on the money line, so you're not really getting much out of it. But there's a little bit of value to be had in this fight, and I would agree with you. I'm going to pick Julia Stoliarenko.
Let's not completely overlook Chandler. She did start off most of her mixed martial arts career under the famed Cesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu system. So, go ahead. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right, man. But just to counterpoint that, the other people that have come out of that camp that have made it to the UFC are Leslie Smith and Chris Avila. It's not to say anything negative about Cesar Gracie or the camp. It's a legit camp. But it's one of those camps that they have two fucking guys, okay? They have Nick Diaz. They have Nate Diaz. Gilbert Melendez didn't go to Cesar Gracie's. He was a scrap pack guy. Jake Shields wasn't going to Cesar Gracie's. He was a scrap pack guy, right? Those guys used to go to AKA and get rounds in, because it's like we have no training partners at Cesar's other than Nick and Nate Diaz. They're both wealthy multimillionaires. Nate walks around probably $175. Nick walks around at 210 right now. He's fucking huge. what rounds is she getting in with like elite level competitors? What women's MMA team is there? Or is it just like, oh shit, she's a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. What? It sounds well and good. It does sound well and good. But like, is that yeah, right? Is that enough? Like Avila had plenty of chances. They gave him like winnable fights. They gave him decent spots, and then he went on like a 3 or 4 fight losing streak after getting cut from the UFC. Like he couldn't even win a fight in Boxing Americas, man. Well, he boxed too, yeah, but like. Yeah, okay, they're down for a scrap. Okay, that's all well and good, but like, you know, does that necessarily mean, well, yeah, she's not going to get armbarred? She's out of the same camp as Nick and Nate Diaz. It's like these guys they're millionaires. They're doing their own thing. They're living their own lives. Like they don't got time to come. I don't know. I feel if anything, that's the reason that the line is closer. It's because people are like, oh shit, this is one of them Diaz girls. Oh shit, but like. Have you watched the tape on her? If she gets the easy money takedowns, that's my worry. Stoliarenko, terrible takedown defense. Yes. And when she's on her back, she might throw up the armbar, but outside of that, you can just smother her down and there's no activity. She has zero ability to get back up. So my worry here is that a couple of takedowns from Chelsea Chandler is going to seal this thing up. But I feel like the stand-up is going to go towards Stoliarenko. That ability to snatch up that armbar is still going to be there. The experience is going to be towards her. And those are all just reasons that I would have to pick her in the spot.
We mentioned Chris Avila, we mentioned Leslie Smith, but both on the beat with the big one here. She's training with Martin Sano. Let's not forget about Martin Sano over there. He gets starched by Semi the Jedi in 10 seconds.
The book is still out on Nick Maximov, right? Is he a total fucking fraud? Because he fights like a total.
And we're gonna find out soon. He has another fight coming up, right?
So, right. Well, we'll have to see. He's another one of these young guys that could, in theory, be getting better, but
yeah. Exactly.
Where is he good? I don't know. Well, let's move on.
All right, let's get to this next one. We got a men's light heavyweight fight coming up here, and we got the Russian Maxim Grishin going up against Philippe Lins. In terms of odds, we got minus 180 on the 43-fight veteran Maxim Grishin, and then on the other side with Philippe Lins, we're getting plus 155. Now, I did a podcast with one of my guys yesterday as a guest spot, and one thing that we kind of came to conclusion together almost at the same time as we're doing the research on that fight is for some reason we thought Philippe Lins was like 29, 28 years old. And then we come to find out the man is 37 years old. I don't know why, for some reason, him and even I forgot the other fighter that comes to mind, but there's just fighters that you expect to be younger than you would actually assume they are. And then you see Philippe Lins coming at 37. Maxim Grishin, 38 years old, right? That's what you would expect from a 44-fight veteran inside his professional MMA career. But that guy's been fighting all over the place, fighting all levels of competition, a very well-rounded mixed martial artist, right? He has good striking, he has good clinching, he has good wrestling. His cardio is pretty decent for a 205er, especially of his stature. And then on the flip side, for Philippe Lins, there's going to be a second walk to the octagon as a light heavyweight. His cardio didn't look the greatest in his last fight against Marcin Prachnio, but luckily it was still more than what Marcin Prachnio had to offer, and Philippe Lins was able to pick up his win there. There's a lot of hype on Lins coming into the UFC after winning that $1 million prize over in PFL, but he fell short against Andrei Arlovsky in his debut. And then in his next fight gets knocked out by Tanner Boser. And everybody's just forgetting about Philippe Lins now, right? They're like, oh, he's trash. He sucks, blah, blah, blah. But like, he still has some fight left in him, in my opinion, right? Like he showed it in the Marcin Prachnio fight. My issue with him is he seems overcalculated to a fault. Like sometimes he just lets fights pass him by, like he did the Andrei Arlovsky fight, where he's just waiting for that proper opportunity to burst and land his big shots. If he does that here against Maxim Grishin, he's going to start getting behind on the scorecards pretty quickly, because Maxim, in my opinion, will be the more active fighter here. I think he'll be the better minute winner. I think he'll be able to have success in the clinch, and I think he'll be able to have success in the striking. It's just, can he avoid the big power of Philippe Lins? I do think he can. And then on the flip side, are we going to see a better version of Philippe Lins now that this is going to be his second time making 205, right? Is he truly living a light heavyweight lifestyle now where the weight cut is not bad and he actually has solid cardio to go the 15 minutes if he needs to? If he shows up the way that he looked in the Marcin Prachnio fight, I have no doubt that Grishin is going to grind this one out and win a decision in the spot. But we have to take into consideration the possible improvements of being a light heavyweight now for Philippe Lins, and he might come out looking better than he did in his last spot. But I still end up leaning on the Grishin side. This is a fight that I do think that will go the full 15 minutes. Obviously, the over 2.5 is about -165 now, -175. That's kind of where I'm leaning. Fight to go to decision, -130. Not too bad of a line. But the specific prop I'd be honing in on is Grishin to win by decision at +150. That's what I'm feeling most here. I just think he'll put together a much better body of work. And I think he'll also have the cardio edge in this matchup as well. So give me Maxime by decision. What about yourself? What are your thoughts on Philippe making his way to 205 for the second time? And do you think he ends up getting his hand raised?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it does seem like he's younger than 37, but no, I've been watching Felipe Lins for a long time, and I never thought he was all that good. I remember sitting with my old boy Paul Shaughnessy in his basement apartment back in the day, and he fought Kelly Anunson, and he was a -300 favorite over Kelly Anunson in Bellator. At the time, he's unbeaten. He's 2-0 for Bellator. He's a big favorite, so of course, look at, and Kelly Anunson was so bad. Anyways, Nunson takes him down and he just like blows his knee out. Yeah, you can blame it on a knee injury, but he didn't look in good shape. He looked like one of these guys that was suspect, big time suspect. When he lost to Clubber Silva 2 fights later, he was a -300 favorite. When he lost to Vadim Nemkov, underdog, sure, but now it's the third time he's been knocked out. Bellator releases him. He lands on the PFL card, goes on one little run against mid to low level PFL heavyweights and won $1 million. Dude checked in $1 million. Crazy. And then he's a -225 favorite over Andrei Arlovsky and does absolutely nothing. Tanner Boser, not really known for his finishing ability, knocks him out in the first round. Now it's another one of these knockouts. Of his 5 pro losses, 4 of them have now been by knockout, 3 of them inside the first round, 1 because of an injured knee, but all the same, rewatch that one back. Doesn't look good. So he drops down to 205. Well, he's 36 years old, dropping down to 205. And he has not been looking good since 2013. Like, I just don't see it out of him. And then he gets the Marcin Prachnio fight. He got mauled in the first round by Marcin Prachnio. And then luckily for him, Prachnio gassed out. Now, Prachnio's not a guy known for his own durability, right? So the fact is, once he tired out and you start landing a couple shots, you still have to rely on maybe wrestling the guy down and scoring some takedowns. I just didn't see this as someone with good cardio. He doesn't have power that translates over. At 37, there's no massive improvements. He's losing at heavyweight, the only weight class he's ever had success in. And now all of a sudden, this late in the game says, I'm going to drop down to 205. I don't expect to see a better version of him in this spot. I expect to see the same version of him in this spot. Whereas Maxime Grishin, yes, 38 years old. You can make the argument that he beat Dustin Jacoby. That would have been a very high-level win, considering Jacoby's on a very solid run within the division right now. Maxime Grishin's got that experience. He does kind of lack power. I think before he signed with the UFC, he had like 8 first-round knockouts or something. Since he's been in the UFC, he just has 1 stoppage victory. It's over Gazmarad Antigulov. And one of the shittiest fights you'll ever watch in your lifetime, man. Like, oh my God. Then watch that fight. So did everybody. So did everybody. And he's landing these little pillow hand bullshit shots. It's like, holy fuck. And I said right then, I'll never bet this guy like competitively again. But to his credit, I thought he looked good against Jacoby. To his credit, he looked better against William Knight. At 38, he's no world beater, but I think he can beat Felipe Lins, and I would lean towards him doing it just like you said, by decision. However, if you're worried that they're both shitty and that they both suspect, straight up fight goes the distance, -130, not a bad price tag. If Felipe Lins wins this fight, he's just going to have quicker hand combinations, press him up against the cage, greasy decision win. If Grishin wins this fight, cleaner kickboxing from the outside, he lands the better shots. I don't necessarily think either guy knocks the other guy out, and fight goes the distance on -130 seem pretty decent to me. So that's another angle I'm looking to attack this fight from.
I like I'm glad that we're on the same spot there for that specific matchup. All right, let's keep this train moving on. Let's just get to the next fight. We got a middleweight belt between Brendan Allen and Krzysztof Jotko. In terms of odds, we got -120 on Jotko, +100 the return on Brendan Allen. Fun fight here. Finally, Brendan Allen, at a price that I finally agree with, right? Like, he's always a chalky favorite in a lot of his fights. Even that last fight against Jacob Malkoun coming in as a -300 favorite. But good God, was that a greasy, close fight that he managed to just win by the skin of his teeth. Now he's going up against a completely different stylistic matchup, and usually a stylistic matchup that gives him trouble, right? Krzysztof Jotko, a far superior striker than Brendan Allen here, does a very good job in terms of maintaining his distance, putting combinations together, sticking his jab out there, using his range. We saw it on full display against Gerald Mearshart in his last fight, former training partner of Brendan Allen up there at Rufus. But obviously, Brendan is down there at Killcliff FC now. Brendan Allen striking is mainly like, for me, it looks more show than substance. Like, he just throws a lot of big head kicks. He'll throw a lot of big strikes, but no real combinations, no real conviction with setting up some sort of boxing game plan. Because at the end of the day, it looks like he just wants to get these fights to the ground, because where he does his best work is with his jiu-jitsu. But I think he's going to struggle to get the fight there. Like, I know Misha Serkinov landed multiple takedowns on Krzysztof Jotko, but he had to work for every single one of them, and he had little to no success even controlling Jotko on the mat, because Jotko does such a good job in terms of nullifying the success of his opponents from that top position, working back to his feet, and then getting back to his handiwork, which is striking. And I think that's what we're going to see over and over again here, honestly. I think Brendan Allen, he struggles against guys that are much better strikers than him, right? Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis, Krzysztof Jotko is the next one in line that'll likely be able to showcase that flaw in Brendan Allen's game. I'm not 100% sold that Jotko is going to knock him out. He's not just that kind of guy that overextends. Like, if he knocked out Gerald Mearshart, then I'd be a little bit more convinced that he wants to kind of pull the trigger enough to try to knock his opponents out. But he just seems content with just touching these guys up from the outside. And that's where I think is going to end up happening here as well. I like me some Jotko. I like me some Jotko by decision. That's sitting around plus 150. But even his money line, I think it's fine just to take his money line at minus 120 in case there is that situation where he does land that big punch against Brendan Allen, counters him effectively, and then puts his lights out as well. So Jotko money line is the suggested play in my opinion. But if you want a specific prop, I'd probably go with the decision, because that's historically how he wins his fights. Am I off here? What are your thoughts on this middleweight matchup?
Yeah, well, a couple things. So, like, is he going to knock Brendan Allen out? He's got one knockout win in the last 6 years, right? And one knockout win overall in a UFC career that dates back 9 years. He's had one knockout win, and it was the Tamdan McCrary, the fucking barn cat. So, like, no, I don't think he's knocking out anybody. He's just not much of a finisher. Then you talk about the striking, he ties up his combinations together. One thing about Jotko is I think he can strike, but he's so frustrating in that he doesn't really want to strike. He mostly wants to cling on to you and press you up against the cage. Lots of cage control, lights out short little knees on the inside. I think all that's effective against Allen. But straight up, again, this is a long career. His one against Jeremy Mearshart, they're all 15-minute fights. These are all decision fights, but he lands 65. Before that, against Misha, 41, low. Strickland, 37, low. Eric Anders, 66. That's his career high for the record, which is not even high. Him versus Barrio, 40. Alan Amandovsky. Who the fuck goes 15 minutes with Alan Amandovsky? He did, and landed approximately 43 significant
I remember that. He grapple fucked him that night, because I think the fight before that, he got knocked out by somebody, and I think he was just scared
Brad Tavares,
he got knocked out in that fight. And I remember, I'm like, why is he grapple fucking him? But he's doing it pretty easily, so do you, homeboy.
In the Brad fight, he was just so afraid of engaging with him. Yeah. Brad Tavares is not known as a power puncher. Again, I think he's knocked out 2 guys in his career, in his UFC career, and it's Krzysztof Jotko and Phil Baroni. So, like what? What is going on here? You know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
And it's all low output. To that point, he had landed 24 against Brad Tavares before he got clipped. 44 against Uriah Hall. 28 against Dave Branch. 42 against Talis Latis. 59 against Brad Scott. Actually, I lied when I said his career high. His career high is actually against Tor Trong. 74.
Wow.
That was 8 years ago. Yeah, I know. Swedish. Big Swedish guy. yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude, I'm not sold on his ability to land volume. He's not a volume striker. He doesn't land with power. He doesn't land with anything authoritative. He looks to cling on to you. He was originally actually supposed to fight Alex Pereira back when Pereira beat Michailidis. That was going to be his second opponent. And he was like on the record calling him out, being like, this guy turned down a fight with me. And then Pereira admitted it and was like, nobody wants to watch your puss style. Like, oh shit. But like that's what Jotko does. He tries to cling on to you. So I think that will work against Brendan Allen, because Malkoun just kind of did the exact same thing. 7 easy money takedowns, and he was largely able to have a lot of success in the clinch. But Malkoun, all of his fights, he gets a lot of takedowns. You know, the AJ Dobson fight, he had like 7 takedowns. I think he averages something like 5 or 6 takedowns per fight in the UFC, which is pretty high. He's Robert Whittaker's BJJ coach. Like, he's got some stuff going for him, I suppose. And Allen's trying to finish that whole fight. He's trying to actually fight. The third round, Malkoun's clinging on for dear life. Allen's the one that's still pushing it. I know it's a debatable split decision, but the kid's 26 years old. You don't think he's going to get better? You don't think he's going to learn from these experiences? You don't think he's going to go to the drawing board and work on that takedown defense and work on that ability to scramble and work on that cardio? I do. Whereas when I look at Krzysztof Jotko, he's 33. He's set in his ways. This is what he does. He's been fighting in the UFC for 9 years and doing exactly this. There's a reason he's never cracked the top 15. He does not move the needle. No one really gives a shit. He can win a fight, sure, but in the same breath, it's like a judge could score it against him because he got 2 takedowns but did nothing with them. That's what you put yourself into. So I'm going to go with the Allen by decision. You got the Jotko by decision. And straight up, I like the just fight goes the decision. When does Jotko not go to decision, right? So at minus 165, minus 155, you can get a decent enough price on that. I think that's the smartest bet. If you want to get a little more greedy with it, you're going to pick one specific side. I'm going to go with Allen, and the Allen by decision is plus 300, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of value there. I think there's a lot of value in just fight goes the distance in general, and that would cover you if, I got to admit, would cover you if Jotko does just pin him up against the cage, and that's what the judges decide that they're going to favor in this matchup, right? It didn't work against Malkoun. They wanted damage. They didn't want control. They wanted damage. If that's the same judging style that they're going to use here against Malkoun or against this opponent, I think it's going to be a similar result. So give me Allen, 26, making improvements. And I think that last fight against Malkoun will hopefully have taught him a few lessons.
Here's your special cloud bet prop for this specific matchup. And you kind of touched on it a lot early in your breakdown here, Cody. Total significant strikes for Krzysztof Jotko. Over, under 41.5. I think that's a damn good number to begin with. But yeah, I'm going to lean the over there, but man, very fishy. What are you thinking there? Where are you leaning?
Yeah, I would lean the over too, because I know I just harped on him for being low numbers, but all the numbers were about that. You know, he generally has between 44 to 50, you know, between 38 and 50. That seems to be a sweet spot. If you told me that his significant strikes was set at 52.5, I'd be like, I'm going to take the under. But yeah, it seems like it's fairly low. I know some books offer who will land the most significant strikes of the two. And Jocko's like favorite at minus 170 over a plus 130 comeback on Brandon Allen. And like, I think Allen could lose the fight and still outstruck Jotko on the numbers because Jotko just doesn't land enough, right? He's not like Ilir Latifi bad, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But like,
that's coming up, Cody.
Like, it's also subjective because the guy that's doing the striking, those little short little knees to the thigh, those little short little, you know, knees to the gut, like sometimes they're not counting them. And maybe that's his fault. Maybe it's all just not significant. But yeah, for my money's worth, he's just very one-dimensional in his ways. And I think Brandon Allen will be able to hopefully go out there and do something about it.
All right, let's get to the next fight here. Let's talk about a fellow Canadian. We got Jesse the Body Snatcher Ronson trying to get his first legit win inside the UFC still, going up against Joaquin Silva, minus 150 on Silva now. Steady like steam coming in on him. He originally opened up at minus 165, got back all the way down to about minus 130, and now the money's coming back in on him. And then on the flip side for Jesse Ronson, we got plus 130. Joaquin Silva not really on the best stretch right now, right? He's gotten knocked out in back-to-back fights. He hasn't really been the most active fighter either. So seeing his chin diminish the way that it has, you know, it's a little bit skeptical. Like he got knocked out by Nasrat Haqparast, who, you know, on paper looks like a big striker, a guy that knocks out a lot of guys. But then when you look at his record, not many knockouts there. And then he lost to the returning Ricky Glenn, no longer Rick Glenn. Ricky Glenn goes up there and starches Joaquin Silva in 37 seconds. Now here Silva goes up against another big puncher in Jesse Ronson, who, you know, he's probably one of the funnest Canadian strikers I've ever watched. Like, you know, way back to the Score Fighting Series days where he took on Ryan Healy and hit him with 3 back-to-back head kicks in a row in the second round. That was probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen live. But that just goes to show how fun of a striker Jesse Jesse Ronson was. I think it only took him another win or two to eventually get into the UFC, but then the UFC completely fucks the guy over by putting him up against some of the toughest grapplers that you can go up against. He starts off his UFC career, UFC 165 against Michel Prazeres, loses a split decision. Next up, somebody that's in the co-main event here, Francisco Trinaldo, loses a split decision. And then, oh, wait, let's throw Kevin Lee at you and lose a split decision there as well. He ends up getting kicked, or not kicked out, but cut from the UFC, makes his way to I think he fought in PFL a couple times. He fought in TKO as well, where he was able to capture the title over there. And now he eventually finds himself back in the UFC. Had that win over Nicholas Dalby, but then it eventually got overturned as he popped for some sort of steroid. So that got changed to a no contest. So he's still technically without a win in the UFC, and it's very unfortunate because his fighting style and his skill level is deserving of that, at least a UFC win. This is a very favorable matchup for him to go out there and find that knockout against a guy who has a very questionable chin at this point in time. But should Joaquim Silva go in there and, look to replicate his name, or his nickname, I should say, in Neto BJJ, that's probably where he'll be able to have the most success. Look to get Jesse Ronson to the ground, look to get that jiu-jitsu going, look to wrap up that neck and take it on home with him. I really want to cheer for Jesse Ronson here, right? Like, I really want him to go out there and get that dub. But I think that if Silva can survive that onslaught that he's going to have to deal with early in this fight with the striking, he'll be able to get this fight to the ground eventually. And I think from there, he'll be able to find a sub at a certain point. The spot that I ended up going with, though, is the under 2.5. I got in at I believe it was minus 130, minus 135. It's still hovering around minus 140, minus 150 on certain spots. But I'm expecting violence in this fight. I'm expecting Jesse Ronson to either knock him out early here, or Joaquim Silva will eventually find that submission and take that on home with him as well. So official prediction is Silva by submission, which is currently sitting at what can I see here? It's plus 500 for Silva by submission, which I think is a very tasty line. And then on the flip side for Ronson, you can get up to plus 350 for him to win by knockout, which is likely his best path to victory in this matchup. But just to cover both sides, I'm going to go under 2.5. minus 140. What about yourself? Do you like the violence like I do, or do you think this could be drawn out and go to a decision as well?
I love the violence in this spot. Joaquim Silva is not the most durable guy going, and Jesse Ronson, for as durable as he may have been earlier in different stages of his career, he's 36 years old now, and he has been on the record being like, it hurts different these days. Like, the end of the road is near. Like, he's hungry to get this win because he knows a loss here could be the end of his competitive career. And I think in the Rafa Garcia fight, call it a legal knee, call it whatever you want, his body language just wilted away. It was his first fight in 2 years. It might have been the layoff. It might have been the jitters. It might have been not having whatever he had, during the Nicholas Dalby fight. It could also be that the Dalby fight was at 170, and then he dropped back down to 55 against Rafa Garcia. So it could have been a bunch of things, but he looked flat. And I'm expecting him either to come out here and have fixed those issues and be in excellent shape, get that big performance, or if he comes out flat again, he's getting finished. If he comes out good, he's finishing. If he doesn't come out good, he's getting finished. That under 2.5, especially at minus 140, looks very good. However, I will ever so slightly go with that Jesse Ronson side. A lot of it's chasing value. A lot of it's maybe Ronson's just got one last one in him. He deserves to have that one actual bona fide UFC win. And I think this would be a decent enough spot to get it against Joaquim Silva. They initially offered him Vince Pichel, a terrible matchup for him, and he accepted. He's getting a gift that Vince Pichel's out, and they've said, okay, let's put in Joaquim. Because Joaquim, hasn't exactly, been fighting extremely, he's not very active. The last fight against Ricky Glenn was about 1.5 years ago now. He's done a little bit of jiu-jitsu in the sideline. He's 33, so he's still younger than Ronson, but I just get a bad feeling. You mentioned Nasrat Haqparast, a guy that is known as a striker but doesn't have a whole lot of knockouts. The only knockout win that Nasrat Haqparast has in the UFC, and he's had a bunch of fights in the UFC, the only one that he was able to knock out his opponent was Joaquim Silva. Now, he knocks him out 36 seconds into the second round. It's basically the first shot that lands in the second topples him over. Now you got Ricky Glenn. Ricky Glenn, a former World Series of Fighting champion. And Ricky Glenn should have 2 stoppage wins in the UFC because they should stop the Gavin Tucker fight. They really should have. But the facts are, he's never stopped an opponent inside the UFC. In fact, before he signed with the UFC, he's not a guy that was ever known for his power. He's a volume puncher. And yet this volume puncher, a guy that typically needs to land 50, 60, 70 shots to topple an opponent over, knocks him out, set 37 seconds into the first round. The first thing that hits him, topples him over. These guys are both regarded as good strikers, but light power punchers. If you remember the Jared Gordon fight, he got shit kicked by Jared Gordon. And then he came back and whizzed Jared Gordon and put him away. That was a crazy good comeback. But the same story has remained in his last 3 fights. He takes a lot of damage. And in the latter 2, light power punchers have been toppling him over. So with Jesse Ronson, he's known for his striking. He's a good counter puncher as well. The Dalby fight, if you're just going to look at it on paper, he submits him, but he submits him because he had knocked him out, right? He floors Nicholas Dalby, takes the back transitions to the rear naked choke. But again, you do see where his striking is at when it's at its best. In the Rafa Garcia fight, the relentless pressure and takedown attempts from Rafa Garcia, that caused him to exhaust himself. That caused him to get discouraged and break mentally, take the illegal knee, call it a day. But against Joaquim Silva's got the better jiu-jitsu, but how good's his wrestling? Is he going to go out there and just take down Ronson like nothing? Maybe. But if he doesn't, he's going to start brawling because that's his natural setting, just brawl. And when he brawls against a guy that's very precise and tactical like Ronson, I just got to hope that straight left hand finds the money. So give me the body snatcher. Don't go to the body. Go to the head. This guy's got chinny. He's chinny. His body might be all right. I don't know, but rock him to the head and put him down. And I think Ronson's got that one last hurrah. So the Ronson by knockout sitting at about plus 350 seems like a gift. But if you're degenerate and you want a little punt or you're a value boy and you want like that one big thing, Ronson round 1 is plus 1100, right?
Oh, wow.
So considering Joaquim Silva just got dusted in his last 2 fights, one 37 seconds into the first, the one before that did make it to the second, I get it. But that early into the second, I think his chin is seriously compromised, and for that reason, the knockout is just a live prop. Even if you put $1 on the first round knockout and $1 on the second round knockout, they're both paying 10-1. You can get 10-1 on the dollar. I just feel like this is a card that I like a lot of the favorites, right? Which one of those sneaky little dogs going to come through, and which one, because it's a prop show, which ones have those like really juicy props associated with them? And his does. The numbers don't quite make sense. I can see him losing, but for these numbers, it's like, shit, the knockout is certainly live, and it pays quite well.
I like it. I hope you're right. As a Canadian, as a guy that loves the adrenaline guys, a guy that loves Team Tompkins, you would hope that Jesse Ronson can go out there and make them proud with another dub here.
I seen online, I was like, damn, Ronson looks in shape. Like, he looks like he's taking it seriously, and he's got a strength and conditioning coach and a nutritionist, and he's already on weight, and it was like, damn. And it was like, yo, Joaquim Silva could be in trouble. Then Paul and I checked out Joaquim Silva. That motherfucker looks in good shape, dude. He's fucking ripped. He's so ripped. So, like, what are you going to do? It's a fist fight on a Saturday night. Lock the cage doors and we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Hopefully for both of us, it is violence, though, since that's what we're looking to see and agree that will happen here. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We're talking about a women's strawweight belt. We got Jessica Penne coming in against Baby Shark Tabitha Ricci. In terms of odds, we got minus 210 on Tabitha Ricci and plus 180 the return on Jessica Penne. I thought this was going to be one of those slam dunk spots for Tabitha Ricci, right? Like, she should just go in there, she should get the dub. But after running the tape a little bit, it's harder for me to accept that she will win this. She will win this fight. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's going to be a little bit harder than the odds actually indicated in this spot. Now, Jessica Penne, 38 years old. She had that crazy controversial win over Lupita Godinez in her return fight. A lot of people thought she ended up losing that fight, but that just goes to show her veteran savvy in terms of how to make that fight close, right? Lupi, we know she's a great wrestler, but anytime she tried to get in on the takedown, we saw Jessica Penne try to like jump onto her back, try to get close to her, try to, tie her up in a knot. She made it very close in those aspects. And then in the striking, she did a good enough job from the outside, using that range, throwing her straight shots down the middle just to keep Lupi kind of guessing. I thought it was a close fight. I thought it could have gone either way, but that fight is just further proof that Jessica Penne is an ultra vet in the fact that she just knows how to make fights close. Now, Tabitha Ricci, great prospect, right? Her striking still needs a little bit of work, but I think that's one part of her game that, once she improves, she'll truly be a legitimate top 10, maybe even top 5 fighter, given that her jiu-jitsu is already so good, right? I'm very impressed with what we see from her on the ground at most times, right? Because the Poliana Viana fight, that one was a little bit hairy, right? She lost the first round because she couldn't really get going in the striking realm. And then when she did get the fight to the ground, she couldn't get anything going as Poliana Viana was very offensive off of her back. Jessica Penne will likely be offensive off of her back as well. So how well is Tabitha going to be from on top when she can't get comfortable, settle position, land some shots, or even try to pass the guard here? She is going to have to, lean on her grappling here. And even though she's not as good of a wrestler as Lupita Godinez is, the takedown defense on Jessica Penne is just too sketchy to even think like she'll be able to stop many takedowns here. But it's just the work that Tabitha should be able to get from on top, right? If she can land some ground and pound, if she can pass guard, if she can get dominant position, I can't fully say that with 100% confidence that she'll be able to do that. I know she'll be able to get the fight to the ground. It's just how effective can she be from on top? Those are where my questions lay. I still think she wins this fight. I think this is one of those spots where we will see the fight go to a decision, but it's going to be one of those greasy ass decisions. So I don't hate anybody taking that flyer on Jessica Penne. I know it's, people are laughing at anybody that even thinks that's a viable option here, but Tabitha Ricci, like, watch her tape. She is very hyped on the social medias and all that stuff, but watch the tape. She's not fighting to the extent that people think that she is. I mean, if that makes sense. Like, she's not really meeting the expectations on tape that people are putting out for her on social media. But I do think she wins. I think she wins by decision. That's sitting at -115. I'd like a little bit of plus money, especially considering how close I think this fight's going to be. But that would be the prop I would recommend for this matchup is Tabitha by decision. What are you feeling here? Am I giving Jessica too much credit, or are you feeling the same thing? Oh, looks like you're muted, my brother.
My
There you
bad. I don't think
Okay.
you're giving her too much credit. I kind of have the same feeling. Like on paper, she's the 39-year-old and she struggles with this. Striking's not good. Physicality's not quite there. But again, she has the experience, and most opponents don't want to strike with her, right? Or they don't want to grapple with her. They're using excellent game plans, stuffing the takedowns, boxing her up, right? Emily Ducote is very strong, physical, good wrestling, and has the superior striking advantage, right? Lupita Godinez has that boxing. She has that strong physicality. Jessica Andrade, Joanna Jacek, they're all elite level strikers. Ricci don't have that. Ricci cannot strike. In fact, as bad as Jessica Penne is, Jessica Penne probably wins this if it stays striking on the basis that she's a lot longer, she throws kicks, and she's got a long, lengthy jab. So it's not pretty, but Ricci just needs to get those takedowns and settle up and guard. And that's fine. I think she does exactly that. But again, now you're playing into Penne's strong suit where she'll just going to be able to make this a grappling match, maybe have some spots. I think it does go to decision for sure. I think Ricci gets the decision. My official pick is Ricci by decision. But I think if you don't mind paying a little bit of chalk, this fight goes the distance, which can be had for -210, -230, somewhere in that range. Yeah, that looks good to me. How are you going to put away Jessica Penne? How the fuck are you planning on doing that? Because I'll tell you something. This girl has not been submitted in 9 years. When she did get submitted, it was by Michelle Watterson, an Invicta FC title fight, and it was in the 4th round. So submitting her, good luck. She's got pretty good jiu-jitsu, BJJ black belt. And then in terms of knocking her out, well, who's done that? Oh, Joanna Jacek, Jessica Andrade. Okay, well, those are probably 2 of the 3 best strikers that the division may have ever seen, realistically. Certainly 2 of the 5 best strikers the division's ever seen. But Joanna Jacek had to hit her 126 significant strikes in order to put her out. Jessica Andrade had to hit her with 117 before she was able to put her out. Both times they were mercy stoppages by the ref. She got a good chin. She's got good submission defense. She is not going to lose inside the distance. Now, flip side to that, if she pulls off the upset over the old baby shark, how is she going to do it? She's going to knock her out? I really don't think that Jessica Penne is going to knock somebody out. Could she submit her? In theory, yeah, that's her strong suit. But again, taking on someone who's so good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's grappler versus grappler. They're going to largely nullify each other. It's going to come down to who's on top and who gets the takedowns. And for that money, it's going to be Tabitha Ricci getting the takedowns and being on top. But I think, like you said, it'll be a greasy decision. It'll be a lot closer than you would like to have had it. And then I think the -230, the -210 you can get on the fight just to go the distance, I feel like that's the safest approach to it. But yes, the official pick will be Ricci by decision.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not crazy and thinking that Jessica's live in this spot, but I just can't, in theory, just actually better in this spot. All right, let's get to the next fight. We are talking about I believe it is, yes, it is the prelim headliner here. We got old man Alexei Oleynik doing the damn thing one more time, going up against Ilir Latifi. I feel like we've talked about this fight a lot, Cody, as it's been scheduled numerous amounts of times. Hopefully we finally get it this weekend so we don't have to talk about it again. But we got Oleynik coming in at plus 150, minus 175, the return on Ilir Latifi. Got to be the most volatile fight on the card because it could go any goddamn way, right? This could be a quick starching from Ilir Latifi. This could be a snooze fest for 14 minutes until Oleynik, Ezekiel chokes him or something like that. Like anything could happen in this fight. I have almost little to no confidence here. Like I think the easiest way of breaking it down is like Oleynik sub or Latifi KO more than likely, right? Like that's probably how it's going to happen. Now, the one thing I'll always remember that DC has once said is like the strongest guy he's ever grappled, sparred with, or anything is Ilir Latifi. That guy is a brick shithouse. He is very hard to take down, very hard to deal with his strength. And I'll be surprised if Oleynik successfully lands a takedown in this fight. I'd be surprised if Latifi willingly looks to take this fight to the ground. But Oleynik has shown that he'll like bite down on the mouthpiece and just wade forward and throw big shots and wait until like either he clips you and drops you or clips you so that he can get your attention up top, and then he'll duck levels and try to take you to the mat. So like Oleynik is live, don't get me wrong, but I think that this is going to be one of those spots where we see a Latifi just muster up one of those early blitzes, land a big hammer, and put him out. Like that's kind of what I'm leaning with the most here. So Latifi by KO plus 140. Don't mind that. The plus money on the under 1.5. You know, I know people are trying to be cheeky with the overs here, but I think that this is going to be one of those like car crash fights right from the jump. And I think that under 1.5 will cash. Latifi round one as well, plus 225. Latifi by KO in round one is around plus 400, plus 600 actually up at Bet Online as well. So I'll go Latifi KO. But good God, can this fight go any which way, Cody? What are you feeling? How are you thinking this is going to go?
Yeah, I mean, Guido Canetti walks into an Apex and says, I'm too fucking old to be fighting at a high level. And Francisco Trinaldo says, buddy, hold my beer. And then Alexei Oleynik comes in and says, buddy, hold my Russian beer. 45 years old. Good God. In fact, this is going to be a modern day record because obviously Ron Van Cleef and Randy Couture got like the actual records, but nobody does this shit anymore, man. Those guys are throwback. Well, Ron Van Cleef's a bum. Well, God bless Ron Van Cleef, by the way, but he was like UFC 3, doesn't count. And in the case of Randy Couture, it was like, yeah, man, this is a decade ago. Like old man Randy could do some of these things, but at 45 and being competitive, I mean, it's a hell of a feather in your cap. It's crazy that you can keep going, crazy that you can even be competitive. And in his case, I mean, he's still winning fights, but at some point, I just got to think it runs out. I got to go with Latifi by knockout. Latifi has big power in his hands. The problem is he's not actually a heavyweight, and he doesn't want to get into these striking matches with these guys. Alexei Oleynik actually fought back in the day at 185. I remember he fought Chael Sonnen on a Bodog fight card back in the day, right? He's better suited for 205 because of his frame, and fighting at heavyweight is just, you know, the byproduct of him being in his mid-40s, just being older and just having, you know, nobody looks at him and says, damn, I wish I was ripped like that. Nah, because it's like I could probably get in better shape than that if I put my mind to it, right? He doesn't have that big, but he's got that, you know, that strength, that physicality, that Russian Spetsnaz ability to take a couple shots and then grab you in a scarf hold or an Ezekiel and all these things that make him dangerous. But as Paul Shaughnessy says, he's excellent when he's able to grab a hold of a guy's neck. And in the case of Ilir Latifi, he does not have a neck. So what are you going to grab a hold of, right? If he gets on top of you and he rains down the ground and pound, I think that's it. If he just lands one of those big overhand standing, I think that's it. My one worry is that Latifi at 205 had shown us some power, had shown us some ability to get the knockout. Latifi, as far as his heavyweight run has gone, he looked like dog shit against Derek Lewis and landed 5 significant strikes in 15 minutes. And then he looked like dog shit against Tanner Boser. Doubled his output. Fair. Motherfucker landed 10 against Tanner Boser. But like, bro, this is a fist fight, man. Some judge is just going to score it against him on the basis of, at least the Russian guy threw some elbows off his back and threw up a couple of Ezekiel chokes, whatever. You got to do something while you're on top. But I feel like Latifi understands that. He's been dealing with some health issues. Apparently that's all sorted out. He's obviously one of Khamzat Chimaev's top guys. You've seen he's in the video. Chimaev's trying to get in a fight with Paulo Costa. Like Latifi's right there with him. They're wrestling. They're grinding. His cardio seems okay. I feel like he can go out there and get the stoppage win against Alexei Oleynik. And I feel like the price is good on it. So that is exactly what I'm going to take. I'm going to back you up on that.
All right, glad we're on the same page there. All right, that is a wrap on the prelims. Actually, sorry, Cody, there is a special Cloud Rep prop I want to pose the question to you here. Will Alexei Oleinik record a takedown? Yes or no? No is at minus 165. Yes is at plus 140. You taking the value on the underdog shot there for him to record a takedown, or do you think that Latifi is just too strong, too stout to be taken down by a guy like Oleinik?
Yeah, like I'm gonna say no, he's not getting taken down by Alexei Oleinik. The only way it could happen is if he just completely gasses him out. If he was completely gassed and then he was able to take him down on that basis, sure. But yeah, I think Latifi's wrestling's too good, and then he'll get those easy takedowns. If anything, he'll get the takedown, and I can see maybe Alexei Oleinik hitting a switch. Maybe he's able to sweep and get on top. Maybe he's able to, take advantage of a sloppy shot to grab a front headlock and transition to the back. Maybe he gets the fight to the ground, but it's not going to be him initiating it and then getting it. And again, when you look at the guys he's taken down, the Spivak one was nice, I suppose. Derek Lewis can't wrestle. Obviously cannot wrestle. Maurice Green cannot wrestle. And the Mark Hunt fight, he was getting beat up by Mark Hunt. That one really hurt me because I had money on Mark Hunt. But again, Alexei Oleinik has got 3 takedowns completed in the last almost 5 years in the octagon and against all non-wrestlers. So against someone like Latifi, who 1 is a lifelong wrestler, 2 a high-level lifelong wrestler, and 3 a little fire hydrant of a man. What would you possibly take him down with?
What hips are you getting in on?
Yeah, right. But would you go for the single leg? Would you reach down to the single leg? You're not hitting him with a high crotch, right? You're not hitting him with a double leg. You're not likely hitting him with an ankle pick. The outside trip would work quite well against him. And maybe Oleynik could get double underhooks and maybe can able to toss him over. But that moment where they both hit the ground, the more explosive man is going to explode from that position and get up on top. And the problem with Oleynik is so savvy, so decorated. Most submission wins, I'm going to say, in MMA history. I think he's second in the UFC behind Charles Oliveira. But in the history of MMA, the only guys with more recorded submission wins would be liars like Travis Fulton or Dan Severn. No, those guys are liars. They're fucking flat out liars. They lied about a bunch of fights. At least 12 of Dan Severn's fights are straight out works and fixes. Travis Fulton killed himself in prison because he's a pedophile, but also worked hundreds of fights. And Shannon Rich is also a worker. So what outside of them, I couldn't tell you anybody else. Jeremy Horn has a bunch of legitimate submission wins, not as many as Alexei Oleinik. He's submitted more guys than anybody else will ever do in this sport and did them the right way. He's fought in I think 9 one-night tournaments, 10 one-night tournaments he's fought in his career. He's got a career dating back to 1997, which is, I think, him and Andrei Arlovsky are the only guys that can claim, pre-9, mid-90s. Yeah, it's all astounding. It really is. He is a record breaker. And he deserves more respect than anybody. Yeah. But at some point, the unicorn magic, it does run out.
Just a little quick fact check here. Alexei Oleinik is actually tied for 7th in the UFC with most submission UFC wins. But as a total career, I think he's at 40 something. So yes, pre-UFC, he had at least 40 plus submissions. Quick top 5 for you guys. Charles Oliveira at 16, Damian Maia at 11, Jim Miller at 11 as well. Nate Diaz, number 4 at 10 with 10, and Gerald Meerschaert, number 5 with 9 submission wins. So
that Meerschaert to me is the most impressive because everybody else that you listed has got a lot of fights in the UFC. Jim Miller, no doubt, he's on the list. Motherfucker's been fighting in the UFC 32
But Meerschaert's been in the UFC half the time that Jim Miller has as well, right?
Yeah, and I would say that was Spivak, but the guy is a beast. It really broke my heart when he submitted my boy Krokop, and I remember he neck cranked him, and I remember thinking man, how's Krokop gonna get neck cranked, man? Man, and then it's this dude's got currently 47 submission wins. At the time, he had 42 or something. It was I bet you he's just got one of those squeezes where when he grabs you, and that's why he's the only guy that's ever hitting Ezekiel off his bottom. Victor Pesta had him mounted. He was mounted and the guy tapped. When will you ever see that again? Maybe never. The wizard Alexei Oleinik did it. Because he's got I remember I had a buddy, we called him Frank the Tank. He's this Italian guy. We always call it Italian, mechanic grip, where it's holy shit, dude. How do you grab? How do you have such amazing grip strength? It's I don't know. It's just genetic.
That guy in jiu-jitsu, fuck.
Yeah, and then the long going joke that I would always make about Alexei Oleinik a long time ago It's like he's one of those straight up Russian Spetsnaz guys where you could beat the crap out of him and be like, show us where the rebel base is, and he'd be like, niche, niche, and then he'd like smack, smack, and he is willing to take the beating.
Yep.
But what I've noticed is the longer that he gets old and longer in the tooth is like he will just the lights get shut off, right? It's not that he is not willing to take the damage because he is. It's that, you know, that one big shot will put you away. In Latifi's case, hasn't knocked out anybody in a little while. But back at that early part of his career, you know, he routinely knocked out guys. Sean O'Connell, 30 seconds. Chris Dempsey, you know, early into the first round. Like a lot of these Hans Stringer, I guess they're all bums in hindsight, except for O'Connell, who won $1 million in PFL.
Now commentating for a living.
I know. Lewis Taylor won $1 million. Emiliano Sordi won $1 million. Felipe Lins won $1 million. The fact that guy's still signed with the UFC just...
Hey, Matthias Scheffel is about to go win $1 million, it's seeming like, if he can get it done. I think he's fighting Ante Delia, if I'm not mistaken, in the heavyweight final. But a guy that lost on the Contender Series is a one fight away from $1 million paycheck. All you need to know.
And so think about it this way, right? What would you line either of those guys against Alexei Oleynik?
Oleynik probably wraps him up into a pretzel as well.
He would be in it. He could theoretically be either of those guys, and at the ripe age of 45 years old, score $1 million in a PFL tournament. And that's not even a stretch.
That
he
should be his last
both of those guys. Yeah, that would be like, bro, you're in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what for, you're just in it. Okay.
I love it. All right. That is a wrap on the prelims. We are obviously at a special start time here of 8 p.m. So we got about 70 live viewers right now. We appreciate you guys hanging with us on this Thursday evening. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe below. Let the All-Star know that you guys appreciate us on their channel, and drop a comment as well. Let us know what your favorite prop is. All right. Before we get to the main card here, let me just quickly play this quick clip from the All-Star showing off their beautiful new app that you guys should be checking out as well. There you guys go. Make sure you check out the All-Star app. Link is in the description below. I promise it will be your fight hub for your mobile phone. You guys won't need any other apps in terms of getting your news, getting your analysis, getting live odds, live stats. The All-Star has got you guys covered, so make sure you guys check out the app. You can download it in the description below. It's free. It's free, guys. You don't have to pay a cent for it. Just download it and check it out. I promise you guys won't be sorry about it. All right, let's get to the first fight on the main card. It is the return of Beast Boy Mike Davis, finally stepping into the cage after 20 plus months out of the cage. He's going up against everybody's favorite Santa Claus, Slava Claus, Vyacheslav Borshchev. He comes in as a plus 155 underdog, minus 180 the return on Mike Davis. Now, it wasn't that long ago that Slava Claus was everybody's darling. You know what I mean? Big favorite against Dakota Bush, puts him out with a beautifully timed body shot. And then he was a solid favorite over veteran Mark Diaz. And Diaz is like, you know what? Let me give this boy a veteran lesson. He takes him down 11 times, controls him for upwards of 12 minutes of a 15-minute fight, and it showcases to Vyacheslav there is another level when you're not able to just go out there and use your striking to your content. Now, you'd expect Mike Davis to come in with a similar game plan to Mike Diaz by looking to ground this fight, but his striking is good enough to remain somewhat competitive with Vyacheslav. So I understand why he's the favorite here, because he has all the tools to do pretty much exactly what Mark Diaz did. Where my concern comes in here is the layoff, right? You're talking about 20 plus months off. Now, last year, he had that fight against Mason Jones in January, and then he had to have a bunch of surgeries after that fight, which kept him out until the end of the year. Then when he was ready to go at the end of the year, apparently he contracted a very bad case of COVID to the point that it was really messing up his cardio. He said he couldn't even get his cardio in check until like December or January. So then when he was finally ready to go, the UFC lined him up with the fight in London against Jai Herbert. From what I heard, he didn't want to be flying or going overseas or anything, considering the Russian and Ukrainian war that was going on at the time, which is still going on, but he was just, hesitant in terms of going overseas because of that, but also had a lot of family issues that he was dealing with as well. But now end of 2022, he finally gets his shot to get back into the cage and try to, pick up where he left off after giving us that barn burner that he had against Mason Jones. My concern here is, yes, he should win this fight, right? But can he replicate exactly what Mark Diaz did in terms of landing 11 takedowns? The fact that he landed 11 takedowns means that Vyacheslav got up at least 10 times. That's a lot of cardio to continuously try to take somebody down over and over again. But people always used to underrate Mark Diaz's grappling game because he was mainly known as like a flashy striker. That's what he came into the UFC with. But little did people know that he had that wrestling in his back pocket. And even if you go back and watch his prior fights, you see that he actually lands multiple takedowns in fights. I think people are just overlooking that going into the Vyach when Diaz and Borshchev were matched up. Now Davis has to go out and do that the same way. So there's ring rust that he has to go up against. There's what if he has long COVID, right? What if he has that type of COVID that's really going to still mess him up and he doesn't know it until he gets into live action and tries to implement his style? Until, like, if he just fought 3 or 4 months ago and showcased that he can go a solid 15 minutes and it's not going to affect him, I am okay paying this minus 180 price tag on him. Like, I think that this line would be a steal on Mike Davis if we can guarantee that we're going to get the same version of him or even a better version of him than what we saw in January of 2021. He should win this fight. He should win it by decision. That would obviously be the play that I would suggest here. Davis by decision currently sitting around plus 200 at certain spots. But like, just something in the back of my head is making me think that Borshchev might be able to keep getting back to his feet, start to weigh on Davis, and then possibly put him out later in this fight. Borshchev in round 3 is plus 1,600. I'm seeing plus 1,900 in certain spots. But like, that would be a very long shot type of thing. I'm not saying that's a lock by any means or anything like that. That is just if Borshchev is to win this fight, this likely is the way that he ends up getting it done. But I still think that I'm going to give Davis the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say he comes back looking how he used to. And if that's the case, plus 200 on his decision line, a beautiful line, not to mention his money line as well, considering how much of an advantage he should have here in the grappling room. So give me Mike Davis, give me Davis by decision. But I have a little bit of reservations in terms of putting legitimate money on it myself. Cody, do you have the same worries that I have, or do you think that this is a layup spot for Mike Davis?
No, it's definitely not a layoff spot because, yes, Slava Claus is going to bring it. He loves to strike. If you do take him down, he's going to get back up. Team Alpha Male guy. He's the kickboxing coach at Team Alpha Male. And so, he's getting in quality work. And every time he gets taken down, he always does get back up. You could take him down if you want to over and over again, which, of course, you saw in his last fight. I like Mike Davis. The reservation is the same as you guys. He's been off for 2 years. Not only has he been off 2 years, COVID, a little bit of a worry. Beyond that, the family issues. Apparently, he's been dealing with family issues for quite some time. Here's a guy that made his debut against Gilbert Burns on short notice, up a weight class, 3 years ago. And he's had 2 fights in the UFC since then, right? It's 2019. It's over 3 years ago. Like, he just doesn't fight enough for my money's worth. But I'm going with theory on this one. I think Mike Davis is supremely talented. He's still only 29. His striking is very good. He's got superior output. In the fight with Mason Jones, what you saw is that he mixed in some takedowns, and his wrestling looked very good. He's been working with high-level training partners. And my buddy Torrance Finney, he's a 2-time Georgia State wrestling champion, 3-0 in MMA right now, competes for Icon over in Florida with George Masvidal's promotion. And his manager basically at Ruby Sports, they were like, yo, we want to get you different looks. So they pay a little training trip, and he goes, spends a couple weeks in Vegas at Extreme Couture. He spends a couple, weeks over at American Top Team, and he went and he spent a couple weeks at Fusion XL, and he was like, Mike Davis is the pound for pound best guy I've seen while I was out traveling. I was like, Mike Davis, who we all know is super tough, but out of all the guys you've seen, you picked Mike Davis? He says, well, pound for pound, because he's a 155-pounder. He goes, but that guy's a complete package. He can wrestle. He can strike. He's in excellent shape. He's physical. He's got good ring IQ. He's got that veteranship. Still to this day, I tell everybody, his fight with Sodiq Yusuf on the Contender Series was the best Contender Series fight I've ever seen. Was the most high-level Contender Series fight I guess I should ever see. Some shit's really exciting. I'll give you that. This was very high level. He's a walk-on. He got a team spot on the Tiger Muay Thai team. Through one of those tryouts, and from there he's just snowballed it. The fight with Gilbert Burns, I mean, dude, he took a fight on short notice with Burns and almost made it through 2 full rounds with him up a weight class. The kid is got all the goods, It's just he doesn't have that regular strength of schedule. So against Borshchev, I think in the striking department, Davis will be fine. He's faster than him, he's a little cleaner than him, and he's got superior output. But why would you want to strike with Vladislav Borshchev for 15 minutes? Why would you want to continuously eat those hard shots he's going to return fire with you at, right? I think mixing in the takedowns is key. Key to win the rounds, because I think Davis wins, but Davis wins by decision. So strike with them. Have a little fun out there, but then mix in those takedowns, preferably when there's a minute or two left in the round, to secure them. People will say, oh, geez, again, when you say him versus Chris Duncan on the Contender Series, he gave up 2 takedowns, lost the first round. Bad look. Him versus Dakota Bush. People remember maybe, Dakota Bush took him down twice in that big finish with the liver shot, but Dakota Bush was out striking him for the first 2.5 minutes of that fight. Yeah. And then eventually the career-long, lifelong wrestler got uncomfortable and ate a body shot. But he was beating him to the kick. He was way faster than him, and he stunned him with one of his shots. I think Davis is going to be way faster with better leg kicks, way more consistency. Don't be shocked if Davis clips him with something and puts him away, but I think it's the work rate, and I will go with the Davis by decision. So that's what I'm taking. I'm worried about the layoff. I'm worried about the family issues. I'm worried about the COVID. I think the better man will show out here, and that should be Mike Davis.
Special CloudBet prop. Again, you guys can check out CloudBet. Link is in the description below, because they give us great, unorthodox props for all these UFC events. The one that we have for this specific matchup, Cody, is over under on Mike Davis takedowns. Over 2.5 at -150, under 2.5 at +130. What are you thinking here?
I think over, because Borshchev tends to hit the deck a whole lot and then just gets right back up. And again, this is a continuous theme. He gives up the 2 to Duncan. He gives the 2 to Dakota Bush. He gives up 11 to Mark Diaz. It's like, oh man. And then you look at his regional show fights and it's like, damn, he just gets taken down all the time and gets back up. So for Davis, I'm hoping he mixes in 1 every round. That already gets him to the 3. But in more actuality, you're probably going to take him down. He's going to pop back up, and you're going to take him right back down and get credited with 2 takedowns. And so for that reason, I think he's going to hit that over 2.5 and probably land somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 takedowns.
I like it. I'll be right there with you as well. All right, let's get to the next fight here. This one's been hotly debated on the Twitter timelines. Curious to hear your thoughts on it. We got a 140-pound catch weight here between John Castaneda, who's coming in as a -190 favorite. He was -200 earlier this week. On the flip side, for Daniel Wildcat Santos, we're looking at +160. Now, John Castaneda coming off a career best performance last time around against Miles Johns as a big underdog that night. I think he was around +160, +170, if I'm not mistaken, and really put the pressure on Miles Johns from the jump. It made Miles Johns uncomfortable. We know Johns, when he's pressured, his cardio starts to take a little bit of a hit, and that was obvious in that fight as he just couldn't get anything going, eventually gassing out, and Castaneda was able to knock or choke him out in that 3rd round of their fight. So great performance from Castaneda there. But it's the 2 fights prior to that where I have a little bit of like a suspect eye. The Eddie Wineland fight, yes, he knocks him out, with the dying seconds of the first rounds left to go. But up until that point, Eddie Wineland was controlling the majority of that fight, landing big strikes, keeping John Castaneda on his heels, and just putting the pressure on him, taking control of the striking realm. Nathaniel Wood doing similar things. Maybe he wasn't on the front foot as much as Eddie Wineland there, but was being the more diverse striker and was able to put way more punches on Castaneda there now. On the Daniel Santos side, a very respectable regional run before coming to the UFC to take on Julio Arce in a fight where, it just wasn't his best performance. He was getting outstruck. Julio Arce showcased that night why he's such a great striker, very technical. His striking defense is a blistering 70%, which is absolutely insane. To not get hit 70% of the time is absolutely insane. And that fight is a perfect example of what Julio Arce looks like on his best day. Able to evade his opponent's shots and counter effectively and win just based off, just being the more effective striker and having really good defense. But what we saw from Daniel Santos in that fight was his aggressiveness. The guy likes to come forward. The guy likes to take charge of his striking. He is a very wild and creative striker. Likes to throw spinning stuff, flying stuff, but he's very consistent with his strikes. He moves forward and he throws a lot of shots. I don't think that Castaneda has as good striking defense as Julio Arce, and I think that we'll see Castaneda on his back foot for the majority of this fight. I think we'll see Santos land a lot of big shots on the feet. I don't know if he'll be able to knock him out, out, like Castaneda only been ever knocked out once in his career, which was his first ever professional loss. But I think that we'll see Santos land the bigger, better strikes here. Castaneda, just not as diverse of a striker as Julio Arce, in my opinion. And I think that people might have this recency bias to Castaneda because he's coming off a career best performance against the guy in Miles Johns, who just, again, not really the greatest fighter, like doesn't really take command of the striking the way that Daniel Santos does. And then on the flip side for Santos, he's coming off a not great performance, right? He only landed 20% of his strikes against Julio Arce. He was missing a lot because Julio Arce, like I said, great striking defense. I just don't know if Castaneda has that type of defense that's going to allow him to get out of the way of these big shots coming his way from Santos. And Santos has great cardio as well. You know, I've seen some Castaneda round 3 takes, and I don't personally get it myself, as I've seen him have great cardio going up against even stiffer competition on the regional scene. So I like everything we see from Santos. He's alongside a UFC lightweight champion Charles Oliveira. That shoot to box Diego Lima gym is really, coming leaps and bounds and really making a mark for themselves in that Brazilian gym scene. But I think that this is a show out spot for Santos to pull off an upset. I don't know if he'll be able to knock out Castaneda. I already like his money line where it's at. But if, this is a prop show. So the prop that I would probably go with is, I still lean the KO, honestly. Plus 500 for the KO is sexy enough to me, considering I know how much he likes to go forward and how much power he has. But the Santos by decision plus 350 is a little bit appealing as well. I'm going to ultimately go with Santos by KO plus 500, but his money line is good, in my opinion, where it's at. Am I jacking off Daniel Santos a little bit too much here, or do you think he's a live underdog as well?
Yeah, I actually think that he's a live underdog. I marked him as one of the dogs this week that I think does have the chance. I just don't know if I can pull the trigger myself personally. I mean, Wily Cat, Willy Cat, whatever people want to call him, he is fun. He's exciting. He'll throw crazy techniques. He seems to have solid enough cardio, but I see the guy kind of break a little bit the longer the fights go through pressure. A lot of his finishes are early. He looks very pretty early, but what you saw in the Julio Arce fight is a masterclass performance by Arce, but the kid just couldn't make those adjustments. Now, that's not just that he's too young. It was similar to, in a sense, Chris Curtis recently against Jack Hermanson. He had no ability to switch up the game plan and change to something else. He instead just followed him around the whole time. It's going to be way easier to find John Castaneda, and therefore, yes, you're probably going to see a much better version of him. But yeah, I'm one of these guys that's got to go with that Castaneda performance against Miles John. He did look career best. That is by far the best the guy's ever looked. He's still only 30. He's got that pressure game. His striking's coming along. He's got some sneaky good power. And I feel like Johns is one of these guys that can break the longer you take him to some deeper waters. But when he's fresh, boy, the guy's fast. He's explosive. He can wrestle. He's got some decent power. And I feel like Castaneda completely took him out of his element. So for this fight with Wily Cat, Daniel Santos, I think it's much of the same thing. If Castaneda can put him on his back foot, he's a guy that always comes forward. And even against Arce, he's coming forward. But how good is he off of his back foot? And likewise, maybe he's going to be the one that's moving Castaneda back and causing Castaneda to be uncomfortable. But whoever establishes themselves as the dominant force in this fight, I think will have the most success. And in Castaneda's case, I think he's got better cardio, more experience. He's durable. He should be able to roll with it and get the victory. So it's not a fight that I would have a whole lot of faith in. You are right. When I'm looking at underdogs with a solid chance this weekend, Santos definitely jumps off at me. But I think if I wanted to just play it, I think I would take the over 2.5. They're both durable. They can both take a shot. We saw Santos in his last time. He took a big shots by Arce. His chin's good. Castaneda, meanwhile, chin's pretty good. I would think this hits that over 2.5, which is about minus 150. But it's going to be violent and it's going to be mostly striking. So you're going to be you're going to be sweating it the entire time. I just have a feeling it's going to hit that over 2.5, and that to me is a little safer than any one side of this.
I like it. Perfect. I'm glad that you think that he's live as well, because I am seeing a lot of love for the Castaneda side. Even before fight week, everybody was hitting on my streams and be like, Castaneda, lock of the night, lock him up. His price is only going to get better. Then I run the tape. I'm like, I'm not so certain about that. So we'll see. All right. Let's get to this next fight here. It's a featherweight fight between Sodiq Yusuf, who's coming in at minus 950, plus 650 the return on Don Sheamus. Now, I don't think that this is a short notice spot for Sheamus. I believe this was him just getting signed outright. He is a two promotion champion coming into the UFC. He holds titles in Cage Titans and FAC, which are respectable regional shows and over there in America. So good, solid spot for Sheamus to get some experience before coming to the UFC. Familiar names that you'll see on his record. Obviously, most recently, he was able to get rid of Cody Pfister. He finished him via strikes in the first round. He fought the everybody's punching bag, Jay Ellis, 16-1, 104. Jay Ellis, he was able to knock him out in 50 seconds. He had a great performance against Chris Lencioni, who's a guy that's a bigger guy than him. That fight took place at 155 pounds. Don Sheamus is a guy that looks like he could even fight at 135 pounds, given his size and stature. His last loss did come to regional veteran Nathan Williams, where he was able to outgrind him over 25 minutes and get the dub there. But that's also another fight where Don just looked a little bit outsized, right? That seems to be the kryptonite for him, is that he just continuously is undersized. But even when he goes in there against bigger guys, he can land takedowns. Like, the guy's skill set is not that bad. When I was going into taping this fight and seeing how wide the odds were for Sadiq, I was expecting to see a complete scrub. But I gotta be honest, I was kind of impressed with what I saw with Don Sheamus. Like, I liked what he brought to the table. The guy's scrappy. The guy has a great calf kick that he likes to implement when he can't get his wrestling going. And then once he gets his wrestling going, he's pretty good from on top as well. I don't understand the wide line on Sadiq Yusuf, especially considering how, at times he can be a very low volume fighter, similar to like the Philippe Lins type of thing, where he almost overcalculates at times. But like we saw in his last fight against Alex Caceres, if it wasn't for the constant leg kicks, he probably would have lost that fight because he just wasn't active with anything else. And then as we saw in the Andre Fili fight, once you introduce grappling into his fights, he starts to slow down. Slow down in the Arnold Allen fight. He slowed down on the Andre Fili fight. And those are fights where he has to grapple, right? When fights go his way, he just mainly strikes. He keeps his opponent at range, uses his power to kind of just nullify them from the outside and just kind of make them respect him too much. And that's where he's able to get his best work done. But if Sheamus can stay active and just land leg kicks from the outside, keep that calf hurting, and then land some takedowns and grind Sadiq out, he's live in this fight to win this fight. Now, I'm not picking Sheamus to win, right? The one prop that I'll throw out there for Sheamus is is Sheamus by decision. The last time I looked at it was plus 1,200. It is still sitting around there, plus 1,200. I'm seeing plus 1,600 on Unibet as well, or sorry, on Bet365. But my favorite prop has got to be the over 1.5, minus 150. I think this fight gets dragged out a little bit. But I think the later that this fight goes, I think we'll eventually see Sadiq Yusuf land that big shot and put Sheamus down. But should this fight go to a decision, it's going to be way closer than a minus 950 indicates. I can guarantee that. It's all about Sheamus if he can eat the big power of Sadiq, which will inevitably land, and if he can get his own game going, which, training with our guy, James Krause, and James Krause just in the last UFC event pulled off the biggest upset on the card with Trey Ogden upsetting Daniel Zellhuber. So it's possible. It is possible. I wish we had somebody a little bit more reliable than Sadiq Yusuf here at minus 950, but like I see a little bit of holes in his games, a lot of it being he's just too patient at times. But I think at a certain point, he'll end up landing that big shot and get him out of there. But I need to say Sheamus by decision is very live at plus 1,200. But I'll still go with Sadiq. What are you thinking here, Cody? Am I too high on Don, or do you think that this is a squash match for Sadiq?
Yeah, a squash match minus 950 is certainly set up that way. I think Sadiq Yusuf is supremely talented, but should he be a minus 10 to 1 favorite over anybody? Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. He's had flaws in his game. His striking defense at times not so good. His chin at times not so good. And honestly, he reminds me a lot of a Hakeem Dawodu. Very, very talented, but sometimes just really gun shy. Sometimes just stares at his opponent a little bit too long. Sometimes has a career best performance, but most of the time just leaves a little bit to be desired, right? And in Sadiq Yusuf's case, when you look back again, his last number of fights, there's not really that one performance where it was like, damn, he really looked good. Outside of the Gabriel Benitez fight, I think his last threes looked flat. Against Andre Fili, he outstruck him, but he gave up the 3 takedowns and made that way closer than it needed to be. The Arnold Allen fight, he got rocked twice in the fight, and that's what blew it for him. And in the Bruce Leroy fight, his last time out, he lost the first round. So there's spots, like it was 1-1 going into the third anyways. There's spots for Sadiq Yusuf. It's not that one breakthrough performance. I don't know how realistically how much better he's getting. But yeah, I mean, against Don Sheamus, it's just a little bit too much too soon. Sheamus is a banger. Sheamus is going to come into this fight to specifically throw down. And I think that's why I like the under 2.5 on this spot. Sodiq Yusuf's either going to clip him or he's going to get clipped. Sheamus has been on record all week saying, listen, I got nothing to lose in this fight. I think he's a little bit chinny. I'm going to go out there and throw down. And I think that's probably his best approach. Yusuf is extremely fluid, extremely crisp, extremely technical on the outside. But if you crash the pocket and make it a scrap, that's where you can intercept him. That's where you can make something happen. That's where you can hurt him. And I feel like that's what he's going to go for. So even though I'm picking Sodiq Yusuf, I would think Sodiq Yusuf gets the knockout, which really Don Sheamus has never been knocked out. I think he's got 3 pro losses, 2 of them by decision, 1 of them doctor stoppage, way back in his like pro debut or something. So yes, on one hand, it's like, well, he's never really been knocked out, but he's never fought anybody like this. And I don't even know that he's even a natural 45er. As you mentioned earlier, he can make 35. I completely agree. I think he can make 35. So I feel like he's going to come to scrap. He's going to give a valiant effort, and Sodiq Yusuf at some point clips him. The under 2.5 just looks really good to me. Sodiq Yusuf versus Arnold Allen. We all know how good Arnold Allen is, right? So when I watched it live, because I bet Sodiq Yusuf, of course, but even when I rewatched the fight for tape study purposes, the first round, Sodiq Yusuf is winning the round. Then he gets clipped, right? Him getting dropped in that first round immediately seals it for Arnold Allen. Of course, by the numbers, Sodiq Yusuf had outstruck him 13-10, but it's the knockdown. In the second round, he outstrucks Arnold Allen 18-9, which effectively means he doubles him up in the second round. But he blocks a head kick and does the stanky leg. Well, god damn it, that's what judges like to look for. That's what they like. So, of course, they give the second round to Arnold Allen. And in the third round, Sodiq Yusuf outlanded him 16-2. He routed him in the third round. It was just too little too late. It was those 2 moments of him getting rocked. And that's what I'm worried about, is that Sheamus could just land something and knock him out. I don't think his chin's all that good. But beyond that, the guy operates at a high level. He's a better striker. He's faster. He's got more experience. His takedown defense is good enough to keep the fight standing. His grappling is low-key better than Sheamus's if the fight hits the ground. He's got him beat everywhere other than puncher's chance. And so I'll take Sodiq Yusuf by knockout, and then I got that under 2.5. And then even if Sheamus pulls the upset, it's possible, I got the under 2.5 at least, right?
Yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting fight. And even Gabriel Benitez was another guy that hurt Sodiq Yusuf before Sodiq came back and hurt and finished him as well. So, yeah, very, very intrigued to see how this one goes. And Vegas might end up getting rich this weekend if Don Sheamus is able to pull off that weekend or that upset, because I know people are just blindly throwing Sodiq into parlays just to get that extra 3-4 cents.
What did the line open at for Sodiq Yusuf?
The line opened at minus 550, and then over the course of 2 days got pushed up to a minus 1100.
Okay, because I was gonna say I never saw the line at less than 850. Right? Obviously I didn't see the opener when it came out.
Minus 550, I can understand. Like, I get it. I get that line, but now we're talking about minus 1,000, right? We're talking about like 92, 93% indicated, and nothing in MMA should be 93% indicated or implied based on odds.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, man, he got outstruck by Bruce Leroy in 2 of the 3 rounds and did not look good against Bruce Leroy. It's like, oh shit. What about Arnold Allen? Arnold Allen rocked his shit twice and beat him. Oh man. What about Andre Fili? Fili took him down 3 times and almost beat him. What about Gabriel Benitez? It was a scrap, which he
almost finished him.
But it's not like he looked particularly good. It's like, oh damn.
You want near perfection from your guy's resume if you're willing to bet, minus 1100, even if it's inside the distance is like minus 500 or some shit, right? Like, that's wild. That is so wild.
You want to know what's criminal? What was he when he bit Mokhtarian? If he was worse odds, or if he was better odds when he fought Mokhtarian, that would be the key.
Sodiq Yusuf versus Mokhtarian, he closed as a minus 600 favorite.
That's what he should be over Sheamus.
Yes,
tops.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Suman, come on.
Sheamus would dunk his balls all over Suman Mokhtarian.
Yeah. You're right about that, bro. You're right about that.
All right, let's get to the next one. Before I quickly do, though, shout out to my guy Finesse God here saying, tell the All-Star to drop the app on Android. It is on Android, my friend. Go into the description of this video, click that link. It'll take you right to the app. I promise you'll be happy with that. It's in the Google Play Store. It's in all that. But just to give you the direct access to it, link is in the description. All right, let's get to the next fight. We got 3 fights left to go here, Cody. Next up, very excited about this one because it is always a treat to watch my guy, Raoni Barcelos, take center stage. He's going up against Trevin Jones here. We got minus 230 on Barcelos and plus 195 the return on Trevin 5-star Jones. Now, it hurts me to say this, but both guys are on the chopping block, Cody. Like, Raoni Barcelos, 0-2 in his last 2 fights, didn't show enough urgency in his fight against Timur Valiev. That fight was 1-1 going into the 3rd round, and he just for some reason seemed a little too gun shy there, allowing Timur just to edge him out in that fight.
It should have been a 10-8 second. Those sons of bitches screwed me.
Yeah,
man.
he did really put the pounding on him there. Very close 10-8 round there as well. And then his next fight against Victor Henry. Victor Henry showed the fuck up, man. Victor Henry showcased what a lifetime of experience all around the world of MMA experience looks like once it finally makes it to the UFC. And he should not have been a plus 400 underdog or whatever the hell he was that night. He looked phenomenal. So I'm willing to give Raoni Barcelos the benefit of the doubt there. But in this fight against Trevin Jones, like, this is a fight he should win. He's the better striker, throws in combinations, has great power, has great leg kicks. If you just take a quick glimpse at the screen and look away, you might think you're looking at Jose Aldo of old. I mean, like, he looked like he has that fighting style of him. And then his wrestling is phenomenal. It's great. I think we should see him go out there and try to implement that here against Trevin Jones. Now, where Trevin Jones is good, Raoni Barcelos is just better, in my opinion, right? Maybe you could give the youth advantage here to Trevin Jones. Raoni Barcelos, 35 years old, if I'm not mistaken right now. But, like, I really think that guy took those last 2 losses and is coming in with a vengeance here and trying to make a point against the guy in Trevin Jones, who, let's be honest, his only wins in the UFC are comeback victories. He got beat to shit by Timur Valiev. Any other ref probably would have stopped that fight. And then we see him go out there and win in the 2nd round. Mario Bautista, beating the crap out of Trevin Jones early in that fight, gets finished in the 2nd round. Those are the only way he's winning these fights. Then he gets completely manhandled by Saeed Yokub Kakramanov, wins that or loses that fight in the 3rd round, if I'm not mistaken. And then there was one more fight he ended up losing after that. Let me just pull it up here.
Yeah, Javid Basharat. But my question, right? Name somebody who's had a tougher 4 opponents to start their UFC career.
No,
that wasn't like a Michael Chandler huge sign.
Yeah,
like,
no, you're right.
Been fed to the wolves.
Yeah, Basharat, showcased very solidly in his last fight, even against Tony Gravely. Like, that guy is a high level prospect that we should be keeping our eyes on. So, not the worst losses. Okay, I'll give him that. But, like, he is going to be outmatched in most of his fights. And I think that this is a similar spot where Raoni will likely have him outmatched. Again, as long as he truly hasn't lost a step, I think that this is going to be one of the best versions that we'll see of Raoni. Maybe similar to what we saw in his fight against Khalid Taha. Just put the pressure on his opponent with the striking, mix in the grappling every now and then, and I think eventually you can break him. And I don't know if he'll finish him late. I think he'll actually go the full 15 minutes here and win this fight by decision. But barring a crazy Hail Mary knockout that Trevin Jones has landed at least in 2 of his fights already, I think Raoni Barcelos controls the majority of this fight and wins it pretty handily as well. So I honestly don't mind eating the chalk at minus 230 on a fighter of his skill level. But if you want to make that price tag better, I think Barcelos by decision at plus 120 is probably the way to go here. So give me Raoni plus 120. Now, given your little interjection of Trevin Jones's level of competition that he's going with, I'm feeling like you might be throwing a curveball to me here and trying to make a case for Trevin 5-star Jones. What are you thinking about this matchup, dude?
Well, I'm going to take Barcelos, but people that know me know him. Barcelos is one of my favorite fighters of the modern era, like within the last 10 years maybe, but he does everything right. As you said, his boxing combinations are slick. He throws in combination, which is beautiful, works the body, goes up top, good pace, good output, nasty leg kicks, high-level BJJ black belt, slick on the ground, and he was like a 8-time member of the Brazilian national wrestling team. He quite literally can do it all. His one thing is, like, as much as I just love everything about his style and what he brings to the table, is his ring IQ is just awful, man. Zigs when he should zag, doesn't take down the guy when it's easy, takes his foot off the gas, follows around, doesn't cut off the ring. A lot of frustrations. If you go back to his fight with Said Nurmagomedov, he actually got outstruck in all 3 rounds. What saves him is the takedown. And it's 1-1 going into the 3rd, and that takedown in the 3rd is what completely saves him. It was like, oh my God, thank God. Maybe he's finally figuring it out. And then the Timur Valiev fight, it's like right back to the same thing. In the 1st round, he just follows him, loses the 1st, 10-8s him in the 2nd with a pair of knockdowns. He just all over him, almost finishes, but doesn't. And then the 3rd round, foot off the gas, almost throws no strikes and gets hustled up. It's a bad look. Victor Henry, it's an ungodly amount of strikes he lands. He lands like over 180, so pretty crazy. Unfortunately, Rowney's not able to keep pace with him, but his wrestling looked bad in that fight. Henry can wrestle as well, former Josh Barnett guy over in California, but like he didn't even come anywhere close, and he just had no ability to transition to a plan B. He was just way too content getting boxed up from the outside and just kind of chasing his man around. With Trevin Jones, the only worry is that Timur landed some big shots on Rowney, right? Said Nurmagomedov landed some big shots on Rowney. Victor Henry landed a ton of shots on Rowney. Rowney's a hittable target. I wouldn't say he's got durability issues, but he's there to get hit. And with Trevin Jones, like we all know, he's got a huge amount of power. Now, people will say, wow, I mean, he's lost his last 2 fights. Well, one, Javi Basharat is a top prospect, right? Everybody that's trained with him says how, next level he is. Aljamain Sterling says, he has trouble with the guy in sparring. Jake Shields is like, bro, I don't even care about training with like guys anymore. People want private seminars. People want this and that. He's like, I'm too old for this. He's like, I only work with guys that I believe will hold a world title at some point. And he's all over both Basharat brothers, private instructions every single day, right? They're super high level. Kakramanov missed weight. And for the record, Kakramanov is really good. And then, of course, I got a lot.
Fight.
Yeah.
I remember being surprised for that with that one.
Yeah, because Kakramanov making his UFC debut, and here's a guy that had fought extremely competitive back in World Series of Fighting against Nurmagomedov. Not the Nurmagomedov, of course, but Umar Nurmagomedov in like a very close fight back in the day. He's very talented. And with Trevin Jones, again, I mean, his UFC debut, he's getting slaughtered. They could have stopped the fight. They absolutely could have stopped the fight. He got 10-8'd in the first round, and then he knocks out Timur Value, a very big win. Mario Batista, my guy. I'm a big fan of his, right? Batista's winning until Jones catches him. I got a bad feeling because I've been burnt on the last 2 Barcelos fights. I got a bad feeling that he's doing everything right. He's landing the combinations. He's beating him to the punch. His takedowns, I don't think, are going to be all that effective. But, maybe trying to mix them in is all well and good. Just got a bad gut feeling that he might get clipped with something at some point, and it's going to topple him over. But that's me trying to be pessimistic. Me trying to be optimistic is Rowney got to get the job done. Rowney realizes that. He's been vocal this week saying that you're going to see a new version of him. He's going to switch it up. And the guy's got all the skills. He just needs to fight a better game plan. I think in this spot, he's got superior volume. He's got enough durability to hopefully take those shots and not topple over. Mixing the takedowns if you can. But beyond that, it's all about pace and just outwork Trevin Jones. I don't feel great about it. Rowney used to be like a top ticket guy for me. I'd love playing Rowney Barcelos. In light of his last couple of performances, 35, slowing down, questionable ring IQ, I think Trevin Jones is another one of these sneaky underdogs that could have a legitimate shot this weekend. But the pick, it's going to have to be with Rowney Barcelos.
Yeah, I don't know if I can live in a world where Ronnie Barcelos goes on a 3-fight losing streak, capped off with the loss to Trevin Jones, and ends his UFC career. I don't know if I can do it, Cody. So hopefully it doesn't end up coming to that. We'll see how it goes this weekend. CloudBet obviously has a special prop for this one. So here's the question: who will land more takedowns? Ronnie Barcelos at -130, Trevin Jones at +550, or the draw where they both just land the same amount of takedowns at +195? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I would say Ronnie Barcelos because I think he'll probably get 1, maybe 2 takedowns, and I don't think Trevin Jones gets any takedowns. So by factor of 1 to none, yeah, I would think Ronnie Barcelos is able to get him to the ground. If he does get him to the ground, though, they're both black belts, right? And even though I say Ronnie's a better black belt, I do believe that. He's not subbing Trevin Jones, I don't think. Jones will probably work his way back up. And I guess here's what my problem is. Rowney hasn't not gone into a fight and has wrestled for 15 full minutes. He just doesn't do it, right? And his jiu-jitsu, if it's not as good enough to submit Jones and Jones gets back up, we've got a striking battle. Now, when you look at Rowney, and I love him, he got cleanly outstruck by Victor Henry in his last fight. He got cleanly outstruck by Timur Valiev in the fight before that. He got outstruck by Said Nurmagomedov by a fairly wide margin. There's been, even in his fight with Kurt Holoba, right? He got outstruck 102 to 82. Thank God he knocked him out in the third, because he's getting out work. He's getting out hustle. He's getting out pace. That's not uncommon for him. And so the difference is Jones don't throw a whole lot of strikes. That's why I'm not going with the underdog shot here, is that Jones might go and land 40-50. And to beat Rowney, you're going to have to land 80-90. I just don't think he does it himself personally. So got to go with Rowney. But yeah, you're right. I don't want to live in a world where a guy as talented as Ronnie Barcelos is losing 3 straight fights And like Trevin Jones, I've never been really big on him, but dude is capable of pulling off upsets. He's an upset specialist. So if you are looking for capable of underdogs, he would fall into the category of a capable underdog. But I got to roll with Rowney one more time.
Let's go, Howney. All right. Co-main event time. We got Randy Rude Boy Brown going up against Francisco Masaran Duba Trinaldo. In terms of odds, we got minus 320 on Rude Boy and plus 265 on Masaran Duba. Fun fight here in terms of a striking standpoint. Both guys obviously have their own style of striking. Rude Boy likes to use his range. He likes to use his Muay Thai, keep his distance, punish his opponents from distance. And he was successful in doing that in specifically his last two fights against Jared Gooden, power puncher, against Chaos Williams, power puncher. Now he's going up against another power puncher in Francisco Trinaldo, but he's going to have a speed advantage. He's going to have a size advantage, a reach advantage, a 12-year youth advantage as well. Everything seems to be drawn up to Randy Brown should win this fight, right? But Masaran Duba at 44 years old is 5-1 in his last 6 fights. That includes wins over Bobby Green, John Makdessi, Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts was his last win as well. Beat Dwight Grant before that. But it's that loss that's sandwiched in there. The one loss to Muslim Salikov that just shows me that this has got to be a walk-off victory here for Rude Boy, right? It was the speed at the end of the day that won that fight for Muslim, right? Muslim was able to land his shots a lot quicker, a lot faster than whatever Masaran Duba was able to do, and he was able to get out of the way whenever Trinaldo tried throwing any type of counter. I'm expecting Rude Boy to be very disciplined here. Use his speed, use his movement, use his footwork, stay on the outside and pitter-patter Francisco, similar to what he was able to do against Chaos Williams. Now, I don't think that we're going to see Rude Boy actually go out there and try to get the finish here. Like, I think we'll see him try to play a discipline, right? This is the longest winning streak of his UFC career, which is going on 6 years now. Can't believe Randy Brown has been in the UFC for 6 years. He still feels like a little bit of a new face, but he's on a 3-fight winning streak. This will be 4, like I said, the longest winning streak of his UFC career. And why would he want to screw that up by trying to go out there balls to the wall against a very dangerous opponent like Francisco Trinaldo? We know this. The last thing to always go, Cody, is that power. And Trinaldo, as he showed in the Danny Roberts fight, even though he didn't knock him out, he still put that fight in his favor because he was able to land the big strikes to hurt Danny Roberts and ultimately start to take over from that point. He can hurt Rude Boy. He can absolutely do that. It's on the table. But I think that's where we're going to see the discipline of Randy Brown come into play. Keep that distance. Use that to keep him on the outside. Use his straight, crisp shots down the middle to keep Trinaldo on the end of his jab. And he should be able to just pitter-patter his way to a decision victory. So I like Randy Brown by decision in this spot. I believe it's close to about plus 150. I was seeing plus 140 on certain spots. Plus 120 even is on certain spots I'm seeing. But I think that's the best way to turn a minus 320 into a bettable number. And that's kind of what I'm leaning with here. Probably one of my more favorite props on the card, if I'm being honest, because I'd be surprised if we see him, really go balls to the wall to try to get Trinaldo out of there. So give me Brown by decision. And then just quickly on the flip side, Trinaldo probably likeliest path to victory is knockout, and that's sitting at plus 900, plus 1,000. So not a bad hedging opportunity if you have this crazy parlay that maybe ends with Randy Brown. Putting a little bit of money on that Trinaldo KO at plus 1,000 is not a bad head spot whatsoever. But Rude Boy should win this without too much issue, which is why I'm going to take him to win this fight specifically by decision. Cody, what are you thinking in this spot, my man?
Yeah, I can't go with Master Nduba. I think 44, the end is definitely there for him. And is he 5-6? Oh, yeah, dude, he's won 5 of his last 6 fights. That's crazy. But, man, you got to look into it. Like, Danny Roberts, awful, cut. Shouldn't have been there in the first place. That's the kind of guy that he can win, sure. Dwight Grant, oh man, Dwight Grant, absolutely terrible. That's the one he can still kind of win. Beyond that, Bobby Green outstruck him 50-31 and took him down twice against once. He flat out robbed Bobby Green. Watch that fight. How could you come to the conclusion that he beat Bobby Green? He didn't, right? The John Makdessi fight, again, he got outstruck 67-55 and didn't get any takedowns. He's not very good. He's slow. He's low output. Yeah, power's the last thing to go. He could land something on Randy Brown, but he's not Vicente Luque. Like, I don't think Randy Brown's going to get hit with that big, snappy, quick shot he doesn't come seeing as much as it's, just big overhand right, step forward. And for the reason he beat Dwight Grant on a split decision in a very lackluster, uneventful fight, which he should have won a unanimous, but awful, man. Outlanded him 36-31. Like, it's just way too low. You mentioned the Muslim Salikov fight, way too slow. Brown's long, he's rangy, he's got a very educated jab. He's a little bit open to leg kicks, but I don't think Masvidal is going to go in with a game plan of landing 25 leg kicks. So he's going to try to time him for the big overhand left or the big overhand right and try to catch Brown at some point. But I think Brown's just going to stay educated, stay to the outside, pop the jab, pop those rangy long leg kicks, and be way faster than him, dance around him. So I'm going to go with Brown, and then Brown by decision, about plus 125, plus 150 range. Again, depending on which book you're at. You're getting plus money on it regardless. And I think he's going to win just by outpointing him. Masvidal has been fighting. Again, we were talking about these OG veterans of the game before. He's been fighting for like 20 years. He's got 40 pro fights. He's never been knocked out. Never been knocked out. Now you could be like, oh, damn. But looking at his rescue, Muslim Salikov knocked him down. It's like, yeah, then he got right back up. So, well, Jay Herbert knocked him down. It's like, yeah, then he got back up and he knocked Jay Herbert the fuck out. And it's like, oh, well, James Vick knocked him down. It's like, and then he got right back up. And it's like, oh, well, Yancy Medeiros knocked him down. It's like, and I thought he almost died in that fight. He was out of it. And all of a sudden his body just starts recouping and he just goes back on his merry way. It's like, all right, this guy can take a frying pan in the face. And I don't know that Brown puts him away. Possible, but leaning towards no. So I'll take the Randy Brown by decision.
I like it. Special cloud bet props for this one as well. We got 2 of them, so let's get your quick thoughts here, Cody. Randy Brown over under 57.5 significant strikes. It's at even money for either or. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I love the over on that. I think he's just going to stay to the outside and land punches and kicks all night long. He's going to respect Masvidal, but he's got a really long reach advantage. Keep in mind, Masvidal's best days are all at 55, right? The only reason he came to 70 is because he couldn't actually ever really make 55 by the end of it, right? So they're like, you got to go to 170. And his 3 fights at 170, just hasn't really looked the same as far as I'm concerned. I feel like Brown's one of these guys that's really long. So he's going to dictate the outside and just rack up shots all fight long. You know, that's a low under as far as like a strike stat. So I would take the over on that myself.
Yeah, I like that. And then lastly, will Francisco Trinaldo record a knockdown? Yes or no at even money?
Yeah, again, I'm gonna say no to that one. He's got one knockdown in the last 4 years, right? And it was Jay Herbert. And Jay Herbert was making his UFC debut against a guy that had like 30 UFC fights. Like, how fair is that, right? But yeah, and then again, like Jay Herbert just robbed Kyle Nelson. Like, there's an argument that he's operating at a very low level. And those are the guys Masvidal beats all day long. They should just do this thing. Honestly, they should do it 3 times a year, where it's like you don't go to fight on the Contender Series, you fight Masvidal. And if you win, you come to the UFC. And if you don't, you get the fuck out of here. I'd like to see him fight those guys. He's an excellent litmus test. But what I see from Randy Brown is like someone who's steadily making improvements. 32, yeah, not the youngest guy going, but actually making legitimate improvements fight to fight. And I think you're going to see those improvements come Saturday.
I love it. All right. I love it. All right. That's going to bring us right to our main event. Shout out to the 75 live viewers that we have with us on this Thursday evening. Smash that like, smash that subscribe, and drop a comment below as well if you're watching this after the fact. Also, just a heads up for you guys, the All-Star is actually having an audio platform as well now. So you guys can catch this on all audio platforms. So make sure you guys check it out on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, all that good stuff. It should be up there in case you're not able to watch the video version with us. All right, let's get to this main event here, Cody. We got the classic striker versus grappler matchup here. Mackenzie Dern coming in at a healthy minus 230, and then on the other side, Yan Xiaonan at plus 195. Very easy fight to break down, right? You're hoping Mackenzie Dern can drag this fight to the mat, but oh boy, it's going to be hard to trust her considering she has a 7% takedown defense accuracy.
Is it 7 or is it 9?
I think it's so you know what? I'm going to have to check it again, but I'm pretty sure it's about like,
I always tell people it's 9. I'm hoping it's 9, but that's so bad.
I'll put it up right now. It is, you are correct. It is 9%. Still shy of double-digit percentage there. She's only landed 3 total takedowns in her entire UFC career. And then on the flip side for Yan Xiaonan, we know she wants to keep this fight on the feet, punish Mackenzie Dern with her striking, and try to either get her out of there or at least go the full 25 minutes and win this fight via decision. Like, this is I get why Mackenzie Dern is a big favorite. Makes sense, right? Like, because if she gets this fight to the ground, it's probably over a lot quicker than if Yan is keeping this fight in the feet and just pitter-pattering her way to a decision victory, because Dern can wrap her up in something, right? But I think people just take a little bit too much from that Carlos Esparza loss from Yan Xiaonan and just applying it to this fight, thinking that Dern will be able to do the same thing. Like, Carlos Esparza, forever underrated, definitely one of the best wrestlers that division has, was able to get Yan to the mat and get her into that crucifix position and get her out of there. It's just, how effectively is Dern going to be able to get this fight to the mat? And then if she can, maybe she can work for the same position and get that top position and do something similar to what Carlos Esparza was able to do. But I'm hoping that these times that or this amount of time that Yan Xiaonan has been spending at Team Alpha Male, it's really helping her defensive grappling speaking, right? That's the biggest flaw in her game. And I'm hoping that they're working on that over and over again. She's getting good training partners. She has a good coaching staff as well. I'm hoping that they can make those improvements in her game, because if she can keep this fight standing, it's going to look like a horror movie. She is going to bash the face of Mackenzie Dern over and over again. And even though she doesn't have a lot of KO victories on her UFC record, this woman hits with a lot of power. Like, if you guys remember the Karolina Kovacevic fight, she burst her tear duct with one of her fucking punches. Like, that fight was close to being stopped just based off of damage alone. Like, that is Yan Xiaonan at her best. I think she could do something similar here to Mackenzie Dern, long enough to break Mackenzie and then maybe finish her later on in this fight. The only thing that kind of just sticks out to me is the fact that we saw Mackenzie go a full 25 minutes with Marina Rodriguez and not get finished. The difference between the two fights, though, I think that is, in that Rodriguez fight, we saw Dern like lost, right? We saw her like, I don't know what to do. My strikes aren't working. My takedowns aren't working. But I think she learned something from that. Like, you see in the Tisha Torres fight, she's throwing strikes more. Like, she's just showing a little bit more confidence. Not saying her striking looked better. She just showed more confidence throwing her strikes and just being a little bit more aggressive in that aspect. And I think if she brings that type of confidence and recklessness here against Yan Xiaonan, she's going to get countered very bad, and she might get her lights put out. Like, she can get away with it against Tisha Torres. Tisha Torres, not really much of a knockout puncher, doesn't really have much big striking power, right? And she was rendered somewhat defenseless as well. And that's a fight that was very close too. But if Yan can counter these reckless entries from Mackenzie Dern, she could hurt her very, very badly, and she can continuously do that for the full 25 minutes if she needs to. But I think at a certain point, there is going to be a finishing opportunity from either side in this matchup. So first and foremost, fight doesn't go to decision. I saw around minus 190 on DraftKings earlier this week. I'm seeing on Best Fight Odds, FanDuel currently has it around minus 220. I don't mind that. I just have a little bit of hesitancy because I could see this going 25 minutes as well. But I also see finishing opportunities from both sides. Mackenzie Dern by submission, minus 110. That's almost a no-brainer shot rather than taking the minus 230 on her money line. And then on the flip side for Yan Xiaonan, plus 600 for her to win by TKO. Gonna get a little bit of my money considering how big of a striking gap I see in this matchup. But I'm hoping that reckless style of Dern will end up getting her knocked out. So I personally bet Yan Xiaonan straight up here because I love the line. I think it's just way too wide considering how much of advantage she has in that realm. And then I think I might sprinkle a little bit of that KO line as well because I think she can capitalize on that sloppiness of the Mackenzie Dern side and get her hand raised as well. So give me Yan by KO, but not super confident in the KO, but I do like that money line around that plus 200 mark. What are you thinking here, Cody? You think Dern just wraps her up in a pretzel, gets this done quick, or does Yan actually make this competitive?
Yeah, this is the thing with MMA. It's like both scenarios could play out, and both people, if you're backing Dern by submission and it happens easy, you'd feel like a genius. If you're backing Yan, you feel like a genius. But if they fought 10 times, you're going to get a different result in most of those because I think it could definitely go a lot of different ways. In terms of Dern getting knocked out, I'm one of the few people that think like Dern's got a really good chin. I mean, she's there to get hit. She's got terrible striking defense. Her chin's way up in the air, but like, girl can take a shot. Now, she's been dropped by light power punchers. She got knocked down by Ashley Yoder. That's a terrible look. She was getting beat up by Hannah Cipher standing, which was embarrassing to say the least. And then, against Marina Rodriguez, 5 rounds against a heavy hitter in the division, landed 144 on her. She took all those shots. I feel like she is getting better. It's just when you come from a jiu-jitsu base and everything's jiu-jitsu, what do you do now? Do you work on your wrestling and then you can't strike for shit? Do you work on your striking and try to get a little bit better? Clearly, she's trying to add different elements to her game. It's that nothing can catch up to her level of jiu-jitsu. So how do you get a fight to the ground without scoring a takedown? Because as you mentioned, 9% on the takedown offense. How is she going to get these fights to the ground? But it's like pulling guard, creating scrambles. That Tecia Torres fight, close fight, competitive fight, but her ability to just jump on Tecia Torres and start wrenching her arm in the second round to a Kimura leads to a sweep, leads to a transition, leads to her getting up on top. Against most girls not named Tecia Torres, she probably puts them away. Ticia's never been finished in her entire career. One of the most durable fighters pound for pound, fought in all the best girls, never been finished. So yeah, she couldn't finish Tecia Torres, but she had some bright spots. If you remember the Marina Rodriguez fight, she takes her down in the second round. If there's 10, 15 seconds left on that second round, she chokes her out. She has her done. Round ends. Unfortunate. These fights hit the ground. She's in a very, very, very dominant position very quickly. Carla Esparza is an excellent wrestler. She can get the fights to the ground. But once she gets to the ground, when has Carla Esparza ever just opened up with ground and pound from the guard and smashed somebody that bad? It looked like Jan was completely out of her element. Wow, she's working at Team Alpha Male. She's 33 years old. I don't know that she's someone that's suddenly going to make these massive and rapid improvements. I would say that 5 rounds probably favors her against Dern, but we've never seen her in a 5-round fight. Where have you seen Dern in a 5-round fight? To that note, in Jan's last fight against Marina Rodriguez, because it honestly could have gone either way. You can score the fight for Jan. You can score the fight for Marina Rodriguez. What is definitive is Jan won the first round and Marina Rodriguez won the third round. Marina Rodriguez outstruck her like 40-18 or something in the third round, landed most of her damaging shots in the third round. It seemed to me like Jan started off really well and slowly started to fatigue as that fight went on. In a 5-round fight, if she starts to fatigue and she slips on a kick and ends up on the ground, I think she's in a whole world of shit. So I would lean towards the Mackenzie Dern by submission. I know that's probably what everybody else is taking this weekend. We like Dern. We don't like the fake accent. It's a little weird, but we like Dern. And, I think if the fight does hit the ground, she submits her. Now, people will say 9% off. It's a scramble, right? Her fights hit the ground regardless if she hits a takedown or not. And I hope to God whoever's training her has got her on fight a smart game plan, like you just got to get the fight to the ground one time, maybe 2 times. But I think you'll see a big difference on the ground between these two, because you've got one girl, okay, who probably from the age of 2, maybe 3 years old, she's been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She is a world champion at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Her father is a world champion at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's been doing it her whole life. Very hard to get to that level. Jan, meanwhile, a Chinese fighter that probably never started doing jiu-jitsu until she was probably 25 years old, right? Catching up to that level is going to be hard. Other girls can, Marina Rodriguez, Tecia Torres, the Carlos Esparzas, even I would think those girls are going to be able to handle it. Jan, maybe, sure, but she's got a lot of catching up to do. And I just got to bank on Mackenzie Dern going out there and getting the win. Now, I'll admit, this is a trash money line. I don't think I'd like Mackenzie Dern at this price. Mackenzie Dern by submission. If you were really bold, you would have the under 2.5 rounds. The Mackenzie Dern by first round submission, I think, pays. Actually, I don't even think the first round submission was good. I like the second round submission. Let me just make sure. The first round submission is 250. Yep. It's not that good. The second round submission at plus 600 I like, because Dern's not going to rush it in the first, I don't think. I think she's going to dance around, try to set up a jab, try to see her openings, try to get Jan comfortable. And then the second round, Jan will make that mistake. She'll get on top. She'll make it happen. She'll put her away. It's what I'm hoping. But there's just better fights on this card. There's better fights this weekend, including that Bellator card. I don't know that this is a main event that you have to bet simply because it's a main event. In fact, does this land as a main event on any other card? Probably not. Probably not.
Hey, the next one we're getting is Alexa Grasso versus Viviane Araújo. So I'll take this one over that one, even though I like those other 2 women as well.
And you want to know the rumor I heard, actually? The rumor I heard, yes, I know, is that Mark Zuckerberg's favorite fighter is Mackenzie Dern. And when I heard that, I was like, shit, me too. So let's have a good time.
I love it. All right, let's just quickly do the quick cloud bet props for this specific matchup. We got a couple actually. So the first of which is Will Mackenzie Dern record a takedown? Yes, plus 120. No, minus 140. What are you thinking here, Cody? 9% takedown accuracy rate.
I know.
Yes or no?
I'm gonna say yeah, because the same thing. People were harping that stat going into the Nina Ansarov fight. Now Nina Nunes, but she took her down. She's got to shoot a low single and disrupt her balance, right? So I'll say, was it set at 0.5?
It's just yes or no.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to say yes. It's a 5-round fight. It's a 5-round fight. It's going to hit the ground by a takedown at least once. Come on.
All right, and then on the Yan Xiaonan side, total significant strikes over under 62.5.
Well, okay, I'm going to say the under because I'm picking Mackenzie Dern, and I think Mackenzie Dern by submission. So where's she going to get all these strikes? But yeah, if you are picking Yan in a 25-minute fight where she's going to be brawling her, yeah, you would take that total all day. On a personal note, no, I wouldn't. But if you are picking Yan for the win, or you think this thing's going to get 4 or 5 rounds in, yeah, that's actually a very generous number.
I like it. All right, this one is an interesting one that they just introduced for the first time. Now, listen closely. What will happen first? A spinning back fist plus 500, flying knee plus 800, Superman punch, or I guess in this case, Superwoman punch, plus 1400, low blow timeout plus 1600, eye poke timeout plus 1700, and then when they read the decision, if only one fighter is present during that decision, plus 1600.
Ooh, I like that.
None of the above for minus 130.
Yeah. Well,
None of these women are like flashy, right? So I don't think we'll see any of those flashy techniques.
I know what you're saying, but I think you do see a spinning back fist.
What
was the price on spinning back fist?
Spinning back fist was plus 500. So that was like the shortest of the props other than none of the above.
Yeah, see, I used to watch these like really low-level shitty striking battles, right? And some dude would always throw spinning back. Someone always throw spinning back fist. And what it is like you ever seen a boxer? They're in there, they're boxing, high-level boxing. The motherfucker will never turn his back. They just don't. It's not something that doesn't happen. But you ever seen shitty boxing? You ever seen two guys who don't know how to box, right? It's called the spin move. The dude will like miss a punch and spin, or he'll like see you coming and he'll spin, or he'll try to get out of dodge and he'll spin. You don't know why it happens, but they do. So I noticed in low-level MMA, they'll do the spin, but they'll just incorporate us. And I think the second one was the value on the eye poke was very good because you got Mackenzie Dern is she's a grappler. She's going to be open-handed the whole time, trying to gauge. If you got Yan trying to step through, trying to put hands on her, she's got an outstand in an outstretched fingers, outstretched hand. Like, yeah, okay, I could see an eye poke happening. It was like plus 1700. So how often do you see eye pokes in fight? All the time, right?
Plus 1700 worthy enough.
Yeah, right. Doesn't it seem like honestly I would have taken the low blow, but let's be real.
Not often we see that.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen here. Did they include fence grab? Because like maybe Mackenzie Dern's like trying to pry her to the ground, and she's just like, "Whoops!" Like that'd be cool.
Dude, what was hilarious is when I was watching, I forgot who it was. Jay Ellis, you remember Jay Ellis, right?
Of course,
the fucking 120 fight veteran. I was watching his fight against Don Sheamus, and literally as he's getting taken down, he's like grabbing onto the fence for dear life and just trying to hold on, and the referee's just slapping his hand away. I'm like, bro, you have 125 professional MMA fights, and you're still making blatant fouls like this. Like, keep it together, dog. Keep it the fuck together.
I had a buddy, Mark Stevens, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm fighting Jay Ellis." And I remember being like, "What?"
Stevens wasn't he a tough alum?
Yeah, he was Josh Koscheck's first round pick on the GSP season, right?
I remember that.
Like, bro, like why are you fighting, Ellis? And he's just like, "Oh, bro, like people that beat Ellis go on to like bigger and better things." I was just like, man, what the fuck is this guy going on about? But like, yeah, he was super adamant. That's like, yeah, promoters don't care. They want to see him. I'm not mistaken. Colby Covington fought him, didn't he?
I feel like he fought Stephan Bonner, right? Didn't he beat Stephan Bonner or something like that?
Jay Ellis, I'm going to say that's a flat no. He hasn't fought
a name.
Yeah, he hasn't fought as many UFC veterans as you think he has. I had this conversation with a guy one time. Just to like nerd out, Derek Noble is a UFC veteran.
Yeah.
Nate Moore, he beat Nate Moore. Nate Moore's a UFC veteran. Bart
Okay.
Palashevsky was a WC and UFC veteran. He beat Gerald Mearshart, who's a UFC
That's
veteran.
who it was. That's who it was.
And that's a big one. Mike Stumpf, low key, is a UFC veteran. That puts him at 5. Joe Jordan's not, but Bellator guy. Dom Grady, God rest his heart. Sharon Leggett was on Tap Out, the reality show back in the day. Rory Markham is an IFL and UFC veteran, right? That gives him 6. James Warfield Lane never made the UFC, but he was a decent enough talent back in the day. Anthony Pettis, yeah, that gives him at 6. Waylon Lowe, that puts him at 7. Pat Curran, former Bellator champion. Daniel Strauss, who he beat, is a former Bellator champion. Tommy Spear was second in the Ultimate Fighter and is a UFC veteran. That's 6. Runs it back with Pat Curran.
I remember that guy.
Marcus Levestre was a great high school wrestler. Yeah, just dope. And it was like D3 in college and couldn't win a fight in the UFC. That gives him 8, right? Yeah, Johnny Case, that puts him at 9. Derek Getzel is a Bellator veteran. Anthony Rocco Martin, that puts him at 10. He lost to Jerry Mearshart in a rematch. He lost to Colby Covington. He lost to
Michelle
Dan Moret.
Quinones, I believe that guy was a UFC vet as well.
Yeah, Michelle Quinones. Yeah, Dan Moret, UFC veteran. And then he fought Mark Stevens, who's an Ultimate Fighter veteran. Zach Otto, right? Joe Giannetti.
Wow, this guy's fought everybody.
Right. Well, in total, it was like he had only fought 13. Yeah, Mike Budnick was actually a former BMX guy. Slippery Pete Barrett, of course. And then as of lately, I think he just fights shit guys now. Because,
sounds familiar. I think
Shante Barnes is on Contender Series. Yeah. Shante Barnes is a Contender Series guy. Yeah, that's
about Matthews, Contender Series guy.
Yeah, so
he just got the contract this season.
Yeah, even like this Trevor Goody guy, people would be like, "Who the fuck is that?" But it's like he beat Connery Gracie on Bellator.
Yes.
Huge underdog win. The kid beat the crap out of him.
I remember that.
So yeah, Jay Ellis is that. Trust me, I'm a matchmaker. You need guys like Jay Ellis because everybody wants to fight him, and he's got the cojones to fight anybody, right? So guys like that. But at some point, it's like, what are you really benefiting from beating Jay Ellis? Just
experience, I guess. All right, let's get to these 3 best prop bets, and then we'll get the hell out of here. I'll kick things off as I normally do. I'll start it right off the bat. There's one that Cody took from me that I really wanted, but to give you guys some variety, I went with some other ones. Not the juiciest of props that I'm comfortable with this weekend, so you're not going to get a plus 700 Rodrigo Nascimento again. I tried looking, nothing that really caught my eye. So first off, the under 1.5 in Costa Canetti, minus 175, a little bit chalked at this point in time, but I really don't expect this fight to get over that 7.5 minute mark. I think Canetti's going to force Costa to fight, and that will either get him knocked the fuck out, or Canetti will be able to get his own knockout after he overwhelms and gasses out Randy Costa. Secondly, I'm going to go Christoph Jotko via decision, plus 150. Much better striker than Brendan Allen, not a big finisher either. I think he'll be able to keep this fight upright for the majority of the 15 minutes and then just do his thing of pitter patter combination, stay active enough to land the better strikes that look better for the judges and get his hand raised via decision. And then lastly, another chalky spot, Ronson Silva under 2.5, minus 140. I guess not super chalky, but still a decent enough price tag. I'm expecting violence. Cody loves the violence there as well. Ronson either gets his knockout here or Silva eventually breaks it down and gets a submission on the mat. He could even record a knockout of his own, if we're being honest. He throws with some big power too. But either way, I think we see violence. I think we see one guy get finished. There you guys go. All right, Cody, let's take over, my friend.
Well, let's go for it. We're going to go with Randy Brown via decision. Again, too long, too fast, stay to the outside, pick away at him. I think Randy Brown wins this fight for sure. The only way he doesn't win this by decision is if he clips him late. But yeah, I'm feeling good about the decision. I feel good about the price. Sign me up for some rude boy. And this next one.
That was the one. Sorry, that was the prop that I wanted to take as well. But I let the guy Cody have it. I'll let him have it.
Well, I appreciate it, good stare. I appreciate it. Now, this next one, right? The thing with Slava Claus is that he does see you when you are sleeping, and he does know when you're awake, but still can't stuff the takedown, right? So Davis has just got to mix in a few here and there periodically. Get this job done by decision, baby. Sign me up plus 230. Now it's like, Cody, you just do one of these all decision tickets again? I love those all decision tickets, but no, my friend. We're going with Ilir Latifi. Now, Ilir Latifi has combined landed 15 strikes in his last 30 minutes. Holy shit. Averaging at about half a strike per minute. So way too low. But I think with Alexei Oleynik, 45 years old, he can land something standing. If he gets the takedown, he can just chop away. It's not enough to just win. You got to win exciting, right? There's nobody in the arena. There's no fans. It's just Dana White. He's cutting people left, right, and center. There's a whole bunch of guys. He just signed 43 people in the last 6 weeks of Contender Series. Okay, what that means is that all these guys got their hand up like, I want to make 12-12. I'm going to make 12-12. And guys like Eli Latifi, because they've got tenure, are making 65-65, 70-70. Those guys will get cut if they don't only win, but win effectively and win in spectacular fashion. They're setting up for this big win. I think he's going to do exactly that. Latifi by KO plus 160.
There you guys go. 3 best prop bets from your boys here over at Propping You Up. Once again, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe below. Drop a comment as well afterwards. Cody, I will give you the platform one last time as a childless man, because you might be a different man the next time we see you. Anything you want to say on the back end, then I'll wrap this thing up.
Things are never going to be the same, brother, but whatever. Life's all about change and roll with the punches. And yeah, it's just like, what's going to be my legacy, you know, hitting some tickets, making some fans, doing some cool content, or like someone who'll take care of me when I get old. That's what I'm going for. So yeah, she's going to be cool. It's going to be pumped up. Just could happen any day now, dude. I am just waiting. The main thing is my daughter, very considerate, decided to wait after Thursday so we can still get the Propping You Up show out of the way. No UFC next weekend, so we won't see you next week. But hopefully that gives me a little bit of time to get established and get settled. And I do hope to see you guys for the next UFC card.
Yes, like Cody said, no UFC next week, so we will be off next week, but we'll be back at it for the October 15th card, which is the precursor for the big UFC 280 event the following week. So we'll get nice and propped up for you guys for October 15th, but hopefully able to catch some big ones for that big 280 card as well. All right, we love you guys. We appreciate the undying support. Again, one quick reminder, hit that like, hit that subscribe below. Also, give the All-Star app a try. Link is in the description below. Android, iPhone, fucking whatever the hell else you want, a BlackBerry, you could possibly get it on a BlackBerry as well. Hit that link below, check it out. I promise you guys won't regret it. All right, love you guys, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Peace out.